In the late 1970s, my father pulled every string he could to secure a spot for me to return to the city. Guzian, a fellow educated youth who had been sent down to the countryside with me, proposed that very day. We got married and returned to the city together. We were deeply in love. I bore his children and helped him achieve fame and success. Yet, during a trip, he seized the moment when my asthma flared up, threw away my medication, and watched me struggle between life and death. He said with venom, "If you hadn't used that city return permit to force me into marriage back then, I wouldn't have broken up with Zhang Jing. She wouldn't have married that scoundrel and been beaten to death in that village. She died in such agony, while you've lived in happiness for decades. Now it's your turn to taste her suffering." Only then did I realize he had hated me for decades, all for the sake of his white moonlight, his one true love. When I opened my eyes again, I went back to the day I received my father's telegram, marry him, marry him." The shouts and jeers from the onlookers jolted me awake. I found myself standing at the entrance of the educated youth station at the village entrance. Guzian stood before me, his face etched with nervousness as he looked at me, his face flushed crimson. "Qin Jiji, I've liked you for a very long time. I promise you, if we get married, I will treat you well, cherish you, and never let you suffer any grievance." I was stunned. I had been reborn, sent back 40 years into the past. I just got a telegram from my father saying he secured a spot for me to return to the city. Trembling with excitement, I stared at Guzian ahead of me. This man, the one who got me killed in my past life, I won't give him another chance this time. I took a step back, looking at Guzian. Behind him stood Zhang Jing, tears in her eyes, clutching the hem of her own clothes tightly. I only found out later that the two of them had already secretly pledged themselves to each other by this point. In my past life, when my father's telegram arrived, the city had just issued a new regulation. If an educated youth was already married, they could bring their spouse back to the city with them. As soon as Guzian learned this news, he immediately proposed to me, sweet-talked me into getting a marriage certificate, and then smoothly returned to the city with me. In everyone else's eyes, Guzian was close to two female educated youths, me and Zhang Jing. When he proposed to me, they all thought he had finally seen his true heart and chosen me. Little did they know, it was all for his own sake. He used my chance to return to the city to propose, planning to find a way to get Zhang Jing transferred back later, but he simply didn't have the ability to secure a return quota himself, and since his job still depended on my father, he didn't dare to bring it up. Zhang Jing was the one who had to stay behind in the village, yet he's putting all the blame on me. A shiver ran down my spine. Now, with the jeering in my ears and Guzian standing before me, I clutched the telegram in my hand and took a step back. "Guzian, aren't you with Zhang Jing? Why are you suddenly proposing to me? You're so fickle." "What about Zhang Jing? Look, she's on the verge of tears. You'd better go comfort her." I saw Zhang Jing freeze, her mouth agape as she stared at me. Guzian, his face a picture of panic, rushed to explain. "Who said that? How could I possibly be with Zhang Jing? The one I've always liked is you, not her. You have to believe me, Gigi." Zhang Jing's face instantly drained of color, tears welling up in her eyes. I tilted my head and said with a smile, "But, I saw the two of you holding each other at the threshing ground that day. I thought you were already a couple." The educated youth and villagers who had gathered around began to murmur among themselves. What? Guzian and Zhang Jing were confirmed to be in a relationship, and now he's proposing to Qin Jiji, that male educated youth. I saw him holding hands with that girl named Zhang Jing over by the cornfield last time. I even remarked how brazen they were, doing it in broad daylight. Yeah. I saw them kissing by the river when I was on night watch too. So embarrassing. No way. Wasn't Zhang Jing always acting so high and mighty? She even said in the dorm that Guzian's family was too poor to get her back to the city, so she wouldn't be with him. Turns out they were already together. Zhang Jing flushed bright red, tears streaming down her face as she sobbed. "Qin Jiji, I know we both had feelings for Guzian. Now that he's proposed to you, you've won. There's no need to humiliate me like this. When have Guzian and I ever been together? We are simply fellow educated youth who were sent down together, nothing more. You must have mistaken me for someone else. How could I possibly be in a romantic relationship with Guzian?" Zhang Jing was a beautiful girl who had always been quite popular and sought after by the male educated youths. Seeing her crying so pitifully now, some of the men began to doubt my words and stepped forward to defend her. "Qin Jiji," one said, "don't make baseless accusations without proof. Zhang Jing has already stated she has nothing to do with Guzian." "Exactly. Don't start bullying people just because you have the privilege of returning to the city. Besides, weren't you always quite fond of Guzian? Now that he's confessed his feelings to you, why are you putting on this act of being reserved? Stop pretending to be so high and mighty, Guzian beamed, reaching out to pull me into an embrace as he said, alright. Gigi's too shy to say yes in front of everyone. Our Gigi gets embarrassed easily, so I'll just take that as a yes. Gigi, don't worry, I'll treat you well from now on. I quickly stepped back, evading his hand. Guzian, I'm not shy, and I have no intention of accepting your proposal. After you publicly rejected my confession last time, I decided to let go. I think you need to face your true feelings. If you like someone, you should have the courage to say it, even if Zhangjing thinks you're not good enough for her. Your genuine devotion will surely move her when you confess. Don't you have that notebook filled with drawings of Zhangjing? You even showed it to me last time when you turned me down. I told you I'd wish you both the best. I saw that notebook of Guzian's in my past life. He always kept it in a locked drawer in his study. Once, he forgot to lock it, and I saw it, a thick book, full of portraits of Zhangjing. He nervously explained that he had a crush on her when he was younger and secretly drew many pictures of her. To show it was all in the past, he threw the notebook in the trash right in front of me, but the next day when I took out the trash, the notebook was gone. I figured he must have fished it out and carefully hidden it away somewhere even more secretive. I pretended to have a sudden realization. I get it now, I said. You proposed to me just to make Zhangjing jealous, didn't you? That would explain all his behavior. As soon as I said it, Guzian panicked completely. I saw he was clutching that very notebook in his hand. I took a step forward, snatched it from him, and rushed over to Zhangjing with an innocent look on my face. Zhangjing, look. It's a whole sketchbook of portraits Guzian drew of you. I opened it in front of everyone. And sure enough, it was filled with drawings of Zhangjing. One of the educated youths grabbed it and flipped through the pages. Oh my god, it really is a whole book. How devoted. That's right, Zhangjing. Guzian's feelings for you are genuine. You should say yes. Exactly. Look at this. Hundreds of portraits. It's so touching. Besides, since neither of you can return to the city, getting married here means you'll have each other to rely on. At those words, Zhangjing and Guzian's faces fell completely. They had a plan all along. Guzian would sweet-talk me into marrying him so we could return to the city together, and then he would use my father's connections to get her back. If Guzian can't marry me, their whole plan will go down the drain. I watched Guzian's face turn as black as a burnt pot, and I almost burst out laughing. I linked arms with my roommate, the female-educated youth Luanen, and said, alright, let's head back to the dorm. Guzian, I wish you and Zhangjing happiness. Be brave and pursue your true love. Guzian suddenly rushed over, trying to grab me, and said angrily, Qin Gigi, are you playing me for a fool? Weren't you the one chasing after me all this time? Now that I've agreed to marry you, what's the meaning of this? A male-educated youth who couldn't stand it any longer stepped forward and blocked him. Guzian, feelings have to be mutual, don't they? Qin Gigi said that after you rejected her. She gave up and let go. What? Are you saying you're allowed to reject others, but they're supposed to just hang around pining for you forever? The one who spoke was Xie Jian, an educated youth from the same batch as us. He was always a bit rough around the edges and didn't like talking to the female youths, so I was surprised he actually stood up for me. Exactly, Guzian, she pursued you, and you didn't agree, did you? You think she has to say yes just because you proposed? That's completely unreasonable. As he listened to the murmurs of the crowd, Guzian's face flushed and then paled. Finally, unable to contain himself, he swung a fist, knocking Xie Jian to the ground. I grabbed his arm. What are you doing? Guzian sneered coldly. Is he the reason you turned me down? Everyone knows Xie Jian's father is a high-ranking official. Are you just waiting for his father to be reinstated so you can climb the social ladder? Give it up. His father's been sent off to who knows where for re-education. Don't even dream about it. Slap. I struck him across the face. Guzian, the reason I won't marry you is because I see right through a petty man like you. You're selfish, only ever thinking of yourself. Why are you proposing? Isn't it just so you can marry me and use that as a ticket back to the city? You think I don't know about the notice that just arrived in the village? How dare you receive it and not announce it to everyone? The notice says that educated youths who are married can take their spouses back to the city with them. My words sent a shockwave through the other youths. What? Since when was there such a notice? Guzian, why are you holding on to the notice? Hand it over. What a despicable man. No wonder he turned down Qin Gigi and was all over Zhangjing recently, and now he's proposing. It was all just to get back to the city. Shameless. Absolutely shameless, that bastard. I stepped forward to help Xie Jian up and brushed the dust off his face. Xie Jian, are you okay? Come on, let me get some ointment for you. With that, I ignored Guzian being swarmed by the educated youths behind us, grabbed Xiajian, and walked away. Xiajian was still laughing while I applied the medicine. I thought for sure you'd accept his proposal, seeing you like that just now. That's more like the temper you used to have back in the city. I shot him a suspicious look. Did we know each other before? He rolled his eyes. Back in the compound, the kid who was always shooting your school bag with a slingshot, don't you remember? I only left with my parents for a few years, and your memory is already this terrible. A memory flashed in my mind, a chubby kid who used to bully me with a slingshot on the way to school. I smeared the red antiseptic mercilessly on his face. So it was you all along. I didn't even recognize you. Why didn't you ever say you knew me? Xiajian curled his lip. You only have eyes for Guzian. Anyone can see you're a fool, and I don't talk to fools. Remembering what Guzian had said, I asked him, was your father sent down? He was silent for a moment. Yeah, far away. He was sent to the northeast. My mother's been sick in the city, all alone, with no one even to bring her medicine, and I can't go back. I thought back to Auntie Liang from my childhood, who was always so gentle. Every time Xiajian made me cry, she'd bring out candy to comfort me, then grab him by the ear and scold him to get justice for me. I stared at him blankly, then suddenly blurted out, Xiajian, what if we got married? That way you could go back to the city to take care of your mother, and I could get Guzian off my back. He's been pestering me to marry him, and it's disgusting. The more I thought about it, the more it seemed like killing two birds with one stone. Plus, Xiajian is the kind of guy who doesn't take crap from anyone. If I married him, Guzian wouldn't dare bother me again. Even if I did get married, the paperwork to return to the city would take a while, and who knows what could happen in the meantime. Xiajian's jaw dropped. After a long pause, he said, Qin Jiji, if you want me to beat up Guzian for you, I'll do it. You don't have to go as far as marrying me. I shot him a glare. So, are we doing this or not? If not, I'll find someone else. With a return to the city spot as the golden ticket, plenty of male-educated youths would jump at the chance to marry me. Xiajian stood up. We're doing it. Let's go. Let's get the paperwork done. If you're not afraid, why should I be? We quickly completed the formalities and got our marriage certificate. I let out a long, deep sigh of relief. In this lifetime, I had finally shaken off Guzian. I was no longer afraid of him harming me. I would make sure he stayed in this village forever, watching me leave with joy. From now on, our lives would have no further intersection. After Xiajian and I finished the formalities, we didn't make a special announcement to anyone. We figured we could hold a proper wedding banquet once we were back in the city. Since we were leaving this place anyway, there was no need for it here. Xiajian fished out a few yuan, bought some fruit drops, and planned to hand them out to the educated youth as makeshift wedding candy. I was just distributing the wedding candy to the educated youth when Guzian and Zhangjing came in from outside. Seeing the fruit drops in my hand, he gave a smug smile. You went out and bought fruit drops just for me. You remembered I like this apple flavor. You publicly turned me down this morning, and now you're trying to sweet-talk me with candy. Let me tell you, Qin Jiji, don't think a few pieces of candy are enough to make me forgive you so easily. It's not that I can't forgive you or agree to marry you, but I have conditions. I looked at him helplessly, just about to shatter his delusions. This candy, he raised his hand to cut me off. What you said this morning damaged Zhangjing's reputation. You need to apologize to her in front of the whole village, and as compensation, once we're back in the city, you have to get your father to secure another urban residency slot for her, to get her back to the city too. If you can manage all that, we'll go get our marriage certificate tomorrow. He wore a smug, self-satisfied look. Zhangjing tugged at his hand. Just getting the urban residency slot is enough. Making her apologize in front of the whole village. I'm afraid Gigi won't be willing. After all, girls are sensitive about their pride. How about she just apologizes to me right here? Guzian looked at her and said, you're just too kind-hearted and soft. Then he turned to me. Well, Qin Gigi, apologize to Zhangjing right here. Then send a telegram to get your father to secure another return to the city quota. As long as your father agrees, we'll get married right away. One of the educated youth spoke up. Guzian, these are the wedding candies from Qin Jiji and Xiajian. They just got their marriage certificate. Guzian was stunned. What marriage certificate? Qin Jiji, how could you marry another man? Didn't you say you fell for me the moment you saw me, and that you only wanted to be with me in this lifetime? You turn around and marry another man. You really are a fickle woman. Zhangjing quickly interjected gently. Don't be like that. Gigi must have misunderstood our relationship and gotten jealous. She's definitely not the type to two-time. don't say such harsh things, she just got married." Then, looking at me, she said, "Gigi, Guzian and I really are just friends, you've misunderstood, he still likes you." After saying this, she tugged on his sleeve. Guzian looked at me with a haughty expression and said, "Fine, I forgive you for our impulsive argument. Go get the divorce papers from Xiajian. And I can still marry you." Xiajian clenched his fists beside him, telling my wife to divorce me right in front of me. "Are you fucking tired of living?" With that, he grabbed the man by the collar, ready to throw a punch. I quickly stepped in to stop him. "Xiajian, don't." Guzian smirked triumphantly. "See, she's still protecting me even now. She doesn't like you at all." I held Xiajian back and said, "The insult was directed at me. If anyone's going to throw a punch, it'll be me." With that, I slapped him hard across the face. "Shut your filthy mouth. The biggest regret of my life, no, of this life and the last, was ever knowing you and having feelings for you. But thankfully, it's not too late to fix that." I opened the marriage certificate and placed it in front of him. "See for yourself, I'm married. Xiajian and I are legally husband and wife. We'll be returning to the city together soon. Guzian, I hope you and Zhongjing can find happiness and contentment here. You can just stay here, in this place you hate most, and toil away with your face to the dirt and your back to the sky for the rest of your life." My words were the final straw that broke him. He grabbed me forcefully. "Impossible. There's no way you like Xiajian. It's me you like. It's always been me. If it's because of Zhongjing, I can ignore her from now on, I swear. Go tell Xiajian right now. Tell him you're divorcing him to marry me. If we get married, we can go back to the city together." "Gigi," he shouted, his eyes bloodshot. With a loud thud, Guzian was knocked to the ground by Xiajian. "Do you think I'm dead? I'm right here breathing. You're telling my wife to divorce me and marry you. Are you out of your damn mind? She said she doesn't like you anymore. Are you deaf, or just stupid? Gigi and I grew up together. Who the hell do you think you are?" Guzian scrambled to his feet and lunged at Xiajian. The two of them grappling on the ground. By the time the village chief arrived to separate them, Guzian's face was swollen to the size of a pig's head from the beating. The village chief shook his head and sighed. "Guzian, you can't stir up trouble just because you couldn't win Qin Gigi's affection. She's married now. Are you trying to break up someone's family? That kind of thinking is unacceptable. Come to my house tonight. I need to have a serious talk with you." As I passed by Zhongjing, I pretended to speak to Xiajian. "I think there are a few other educated youths returning to the city in our batch. We should ask the village chief who else is going. It'll be nice to have company for the journey." Then, I watched as Zhongjing's expression shifted, and she lowered her head. I sneered inwardly. The fish had taken the bait. The news that Guzian had gotten into a physical fight with Xiajian over my marriage spread like wildfire through the educated youth camp. Everyone was pointing fingers and whispering about him. Didn't he reject Qin Gigi when she had feelings for him? "Oh, you don't know the half of it. That guy just wants to get married so he can return to the city. Who knows if his feelings are even genuine? Wasn't he also getting pretty close with that Zhongjing, playing the field, huh? What a player." The gossip left him unable to hold his head up. Combined with the injuries on his face, he simply used his illness as an excuse to stay holed up in the dorm, and during this time he was hiding away. Zhongjing started making her own moves, getting very cozy with another educated youth from a different work unit. I was so caught up with Xiajian, making plans for our return to the city, that I completely missed what was happening with them. In the end, it was Luanan who came running to tell me that Zhongjing had fallen out with Guzian and was now set to marry another male educated youth. It turned out Guzian had been holed up in his room for a few days, nursing his wounds. The first thing he did when he emerged was to go looking for Zhongjing. Another educated youth stammered out the news that Zhongjing was hardly ever at their own station anymore. She spent all her time hanging around with people from the neighboring youth station. When Guzian finally went to find Zhongjing, he ran into that other male youth, Chi Feng, walking her back to the station. They were being very affectionate. Guzian had intended to confront Zhongjing about her change of heart, but instead, he ended up being humiliated by Chi Feng. Chi Feng accused him of being a spurned admirer who was now slandering her out of spite. He then informed Guzian that he and Zhongjing were officially a couple and were already making plans to get their marriage certificate. Guzian was stunned. In just 1 week, Zhongjing had not only fallen for another male educated youth, but was actually planning to marry him. That evening, I saw Guzian go to find Zhongjing. He pulled her outside under the eaves and confronted her bluntly. "Zhongjing, why are you suddenly marrying someone else? Have you forgotten what we are to each other? You're my girlfriend. Zhang Jing snorted coldly. Didn't you declare in front of everyone that it was Qin Jiji you liked? Guzian explained. Wasn't that our plan? I'd trick her into marrying me first. Once we're back in the city, we'd find a way to get her father to secure a spot for you. Zhang Jing smiled. That won't be necessary. Once I marry Qi Feng, I'll be able to return to the city immediately. To be honest, we were never really suited for each other. I said it from the very beginning. Our family backgrounds are different, and our ways of thinking just don't align. Maybe it's for the best this way. Since you can't get back to the city, I have to find my own way out. You can't just hold me back because you're stuck here, can you? Guzian grabbed her arm tightly. I did this for you. I turned down Qin Jiji because of you. How can you treat me like this? What am I supposed to do? Stuck here all alone. If you hadn't promised so earnestly that we'd be together, I would never have ended up in this mess. Zhang Jing pulled her arm free. Don't blame me for your own incompetence. The only reason I agreed to be your girlfriend was because you claimed you had a way out. It's not like you got the short end of the stick anyway. Let's just leave it at that. Don't come looking for me anymore, or Qi Feng will be upset. We're getting married soon. From now on, let's just be acquaintances. With that, she entered the girls' dormitory and slammed the door shut. Guzian slumped to the ground and suddenly let out a heart-wrenching cry. No, I won't break up. Zhang Jing, you can't marry someone else. The commotion drew all the surrounding educated youths out to watch the spectacle. Watching them argue from inside the room, Xie Jian and I felt a surge of vindictive satisfaction. In my past life, he had schemed against me. This time, all his plans had come to nothing. I was eager to see how he would get himself out of this mess. A month later, Zhang Jing and Qi Feng really did get married. Qi Feng generously bought plenty of wedding sweets and pastries, and even gave money to the village chief to have extra dishes prepared for all the educated youths at the farm, treating it as their wedding feast. Just as the celebration was in full swing, I walked in carrying an elegant paper box and placed it before Qi Feng and Zhang Jing. A wedding gift for you both, I said, not wanting to cause a scene. Zhang Jing put on a smile for the crowd and opened the box. The moment she saw the contents, her face fell. Qin Jiji, what is the meaning of this? She demanded. Everyone craned their necks to look. Inside was a pair of tattered shoes. The insult of giving worn-out shoes at a wedding was unmistakable. A wave of shock and chatter rippled through the crowd of educated youths, all straining to get a look, pointing at Zhang Jing in her red dress. I looked at Qi Feng with feigned pity. You're marrying Zhang Jing, but did you know she was Guzian's girlfriend? They pledged themselves to each other long ago. You're just picking up someone else's cast-off. Do you really think she's some kind of angel? She only married you to get back to the city. Did you think she was as innocent as a little lamb? She's ruthless, that woman. To secure her return, she even had her own boyfriend pursue me, trying to trick me into marriage so they could both get back to the city together. Now that she sees no hope of going back with me, she immediately latches onto you. And you think you've hit the jackpot? Qi Feng's face twisted with rage as he grabbed Zhang Jing. Tell me, he snarled, is what Qin Jiji said true? Do you have some improper relationship with Guzian? Zhang Jing wept pitifully. Don't you know what kind of person I am? I'm your wife. Yet you stand by and let people slander me, even humiliate me. What's the point of me being married to someone like you? Guzian was already fuming from being dumped by her. Seeing me present those worn-out shoes was the perfect opportunity he'd been waiting for. He shouted, Zhang Jing, you deny being my girlfriend. I have proof. Qi Feng, doesn't she have a peach blossom birthmark on her inner thigh? How else would I know such a thing if we weren't intimate? The group of educated youths let out a collective woe, the scene erupting into an uproar. Slap. Qi Feng struck Zhang Jing across the face. You tramp, you tricked me into marrying you. I never thought you were this kind of woman. I want a divorce. Zhang Jing broke down into hysterical sobs. He's lying. How can you believe them? If you divorce me, I won't go on living. I'll go back to the city and report you for seducing and abandoning me. The village chief watched the chaos among the educated youth, furious. Guzian and Zhang Jing were like rotten apples spoiling the whole barrel, stirring up trouble and corrupting the atmosphere for everyone. He shouted to quell the disturbance, then pointed at Qi Feng and Zhang Jing. You're married now, and your paperwork to return to the city is complete. You leave next week. Once you're back in the city, whether you divorce or not is none of my business, but here, under my watch. Absolutely not. He then turned his gaze to Guzian. If you're willing to behave and keep your head down, you can stay in this village, but if you keep causing trouble, I'll have you transferred to another outpost. It's deep in the mountains. Once you're there, forget about returning to the city. You won't even be able to leave the foothills. think carefully about that, 'cause any more trouble, and I'll report you to the higher-ups. I'll say you have ideological problems. Then you can forget about returning to the city, you won't be hoping for anything at all." The village chief stormed off in a huff. Chiefing shook off Zhang Jing's hand and walked away without a backward glance. Zhang Jing chased after him, sobbing, "Chiefing, he's slandering me because he couldn't have me, you have to believe me." Her tearful pleas faded into the distance as she ran. Gu Ziyan got completely wasted at the dinner table, muttering to himself, "I will make it back to the city, I absolutely will. Don't you dare think you can leave me behind." I finally let out a long, deep sigh of relief. The next day, I boarded the train back to the city with Xie Jian. After we returned to the city, the neighborhood committee arranged jobs for us. Xie Jian and I set up a little home of our own, and we became a proper married couple. He had matured a great deal, shedding the reckless defiance of his youth to become a considerate and devoted family man. With the attentive care we provided after our return, his mother's health gradually improved. She regained enough strength to start fretting over when we would have children. In the summer of the following year, I became pregnant, and our little home was filled with laughter. While I was at the hospital for a prenatal checkup, I unexpectedly ran into Gu Ziyan. My heart sank. How on earth had he managed to get back to the city? "Honey, what are you looking at?" A stout, heavy-set woman with a prominent belly called out to him from behind. Gu Ziyan quickly turned around, forcing a smile. "Darling, I just thought I saw an old friend and took a second look, but they're gone now. Are you done with your checkup? Let's go," the woman said with a coquettish pout. "Don't you go looking at other women. I know you have a wandering eye. If I find out you've done anything to betray me, I'll tell my father. You'll be in for it then." Gu Ziyan lowered his head, gently coaxing her. "How could I? I've told you, you're the only one in my heart and in my eyes. Why are you getting jealous? None of them could ever be as virtuous and considerate as you are." The woman brightened up. "You're all talk. When we get to my house, remember to say the right things to my father. Try to get him to arrange a job for you." I only found out later that after we left, a new batch of educated youths was sent down to that place. This woman was named Liu. Her father had originally been an official, but was later sent down to the countryside. Who would have thought that just as Liu arrived in the village, the notice came down that her father had been reinstated to his former post, but she couldn't return to the city immediately. It wouldn't look good. When Gu Ziyan got wind of this news, he started hovering around Liu day and night, waiting on her hand and foot and launching an ardent pursuit. Gu Ziyan was a handsome man, and Liu was quickly swept off her feet by his charm. In less than 3 months, they had already pledged themselves to each other and, utterly smitten, she married him. When Liu's father found out, he disapproved but had no choice. He could only accept this son-in-law and let him return to the city with them. Liu's father arranged a job for her, but Gu Ziyan's employment was delayed indefinitely. Left with no other option, Gu Ziyan could only handle household chores every day. As it happened, Liu became pregnant, so he also had to accompany her to the hospital for weekly prenatal checkups. After running into me at the hospital, Gu Ziyan somehow managed to find out I worked at a school. He waited for me at the school gate and called out, "Gigi." I looked at him, hesitating for a moment. "Is something wrong?" Only then did he notice my protruding belly, his expression darkening. "You're pregnant." I patted my stomach and laughed. "Yeah, I've been married for over a year. It's pretty normal to be pregnant. What about you? Looking at your wife's belly, she must be 6 or 7 months along. I heard you haven't been married long. A shotgun wedding, was it?" His expression turned pained. I had no choice. If I didn't marry her, there was no way I could return to the city. "Did you expect me to stay in that village for the rest of my life? If you had married me back then, I wouldn't have had to." I cut him off. "Gu Ziyan, whether you can return to the city is your own problem. Why should I pave the way for you with my own happiness? Many people can't leave the countryside, but they still strive to build a life there." I turned my head away. "Is there anything else? If not, I'm leaving." He reached out to stop me, looking at me with a pleading gaze. "I really can't stand being with Liu anymore. Gigi, please, could you ask your father to pull some strings and help me get a job? Once I have a job, my household registration can be transferred to the work unit, then I won't have any ties to Liu anymore, and I can finally leave her." I looked at this man, truly unable to comprehend how I could have loved him so deeply in my past life. I was completely blind to his true nature, used by him, and hated by him for a lifetime. The truth is, he has always been a selfish person. I really don't know how I was so blind in my previous life, deceived by him for an entire lifetime, only to end up dying by his hand. I looked at him with utter disgust and shouted, "Gu Ziyan, that's enough. You're a married man, you should treat your wife properly, she's carrying your child, how can you say such things? You used her to get back to the city, and now you want to use me to sort out your job, how can you be so shameless? Guzian hurriedly explained, it's not like that, I had no choice, if I hadn't sweet-talked Liu, how could I have returned to the city? No sooner had the words left his mouth than someone grabbed him fiercely by the collar and slapped him hard across the face. It was Liu. Liu had always thought Guzian was too handsome for her own good. Even after marrying him, she felt insecure, constantly worrying he'd fall for someone else. She kept a tight leash on him. Seeing him leave the house alone today, she grew suspicious and decided to follow him discreetly. I spotted her hiding there ages ago. That's exactly why I said all that on purpose. Guzian, you ungrateful wretch, so it was all a lie. You said you loved me, sweet-talked me into carrying your child, tricked me into marriage, all just to get back to the city. I chimed in, fanning the flames. You deceived that girl, so you have to take responsibility. How can you even think about divorce? You're despicable. Liu glared at him fiercely. You want a divorce, over my dead body? Listen here, Guzian, if you try to leave me, I have ways to make sure you can't find a job anywhere. With no one to take you in, you'll be sent right back to the countryside. You'd better think carefully. Guzian's face turned ashen. He hurriedly stood up, head bowed, not even daring to cover his face. Darling, it's a misunderstanding. I was just visiting an old friend from my time in the countryside. Hoping her father could help me find a job. Liu snorted coldly. I don't care if it's true or not. Just let me catch you with any ulterior motives, and you'll regret it. With that, she tossed the vegetable basket at him. Take this, go home and cook. Guzian obediently picked up the basket and trailed after her. Slinking away in defeat, when I was giving birth, Luanin, who had been sent down to the countryside with me, came to visit. During our chat, she asked, do you remember Zhang Jing? I looked up at her. Of course I remember. Didn't she marry Qi Feng and go back to the city with him? Luanin let out a sigh. You didn't know. She didn't go back to the city. Qi Feng didn't want to be stuck with a used woman, so he made a huge scene, divorced her, and went back to the city alone. She stayed behind as an educated youth. Her reputation was completely ruined, and no production brigade was willing to take her in. The village head had no choice but to transfer her to a remote brigade. I heard she couldn't make ends meet there either and ended up marrying a local hoodlum. At first, that hoodlum treated her well because she was pretty, but later, he must have heard about her past from somewhere. After that, he beat and cursed her every day. She had a miserable life. Who would have thought Zhang Jing would walk the same path again, marrying a hoodlum and living a life of daily beatings? And that Guzian, didn't he sweet-talk that female educated youth into marrying him so he could return to the city? I heard that to get a divorce. He then got involved with some official's daughter, but his wife found out and divorced him. Liu ruined his job prospects and wouldn't let him register his household with her family. He became a man without status or papers. With no other choice, the neighborhood committee had to arrange for him to be sent down to the countryside again as an educated youth. TSK, everyone else is gradually returning to the city, but he's the only one being sent down again. Serves him right, that two-timing scoundrel. I looked at my son in my arms, thought of the suffering from my past life, and realized it was all over now. In the courtyard, Xie Jian came in holding a new dress. Darling, you finished your postpartum confinement today. I bought you a new dress and a gold necklace. Try them on. When the guests arrive later, let them be properly envious. I laughed. How childish. I'm a mother now. What's the point of dressing up so beautifully? Xie Jian looked utterly pleased with himself. What's childish about it? My wife should dress beautifully. She should be beautiful all the time. What's wrong with me wanting to show off a little? I changed into the new dress and put on the necklace. Xie Jian put his arms around me and our child, and we went to greet the guests entering the courtyard. My brand new life is just beginning. Story 2. My childhood friend, who grew up in my family, was selected by the factory this year to study abroad. However, his first love tried to drug his drink to knock him out, hoping he'd miss his chance to go abroad and stay behind instead. I couldn't bear to see everyone's hopes for him dashed. So I told my parents the truth. My parents were furious and reported it to the police. His first love was arrested and, unable to bear the public scorn, hanged herself. Later, my childhood friend, now successful and powerful, blamed it all on me and took revenge, leading to the tragic death of my entire family. Given a second chance at life, I stood by and watched his downfall, while his rival rose to prominence with the tides of the times, his future bright and promising. At the factory gate, Li Zhongfeng, wearing a commendation flower, strode past, brimming with pride and satisfaction. Li Zhongfeng is so handsome, you grew up with him since you were kids, you really hit the jackpot, Wang Li said to me with a wink and a nudge. In my past life, I naively believed that Li Zhongfeng and I were destined to be together. On my 18th birthday, I mustered up the courage to ask him to take a photo for me as a keepsake, but he impatiently turned me down. My parents also scolded me for being inconsiderate and holding him back from preparing for his overseas interview, but that night, on a whim, I decided to bring Li Zhongfeng some late-night snacks. To my shock, I saw him in the factory dormitory, holding Chen Lan's hand and writing a sweet vow on a piece of imported photo paper. Once Li Zhongfeng returns from abroad, Qinghe, you'll be living the life of a wealthy lady. Wang Li's teasing remark snapped me out of my reverie. A wealthy lady. As the daughter of the county academy's headmaster, I never wanted for anything growing up. Things like vanity and status meant nothing to me, but I couldn't bear the thought of Li Zhongfeng's decade of arduous study coming to nothing. So, despite never having believed in fate, I went to the temple and prayed for a protective charm. On the morning of the interview, hoping for a bit of good luck, I went out at the crack of dawn to buy a big celebratory cake. I was happily carrying it home when, near the bicycle shed, I spotted Chen Lan, who had no business being there, sneakily talking to a man. Is this medicine really effective? Don't you worry one bit, girl, everyone back in my hometown uses this stuff. Even the most strong-willed person will drink it and fall right into line. My face flushed and my heart raced as I listened for a while, thinking Chen Lan intended to use it for the animals at home. To my surprise, after taking the medicine, Chen Lan said, I don't care if he gives in or not, I just want him to miss his chance to go abroad tomorrow. Well said, once a man goes abroad, how could he possibly remember his family? The man glanced a few times toward our house, his face full of greed, and said, as long as you can marry into the Lin family, your brother here will get to enjoy the good life too. Just think how much that building must be worth. Sis, once you marry Li Zhongfeng, our whole family can move in, right? Chen Lan said smugly, of course, you just go home and wait for my good news. That brother and sister pair actually intended to harm Li Zhongfeng. I couldn't bear to see Li Zhongfeng's future ruined by Chen Lan. After returning home, I told him about the scheme she and her brother had concocted, hoping he would wake up and not fall into her trap. Li Zhongfeng claimed I was just jealous of Chen Lan, and that I resorted to such despicable means to tarnish her reputation. With no other choice, I had to turn to my parents for help. My parents were furious. They immediately called the police, who found the drugs in Chen Lan's possession on the spot and took her away. Li Zhongfeng remained silent at the time. The next day, he still passed the overseas assessment as scheduled. 3 years later, he returned from his studies abroad, founded the county's first joint venture, and became its youngest tycoon. My parents were filled with immense relief, repeatedly sighing that all their sacrifices had finally paid off. But that very same year, Li Zhongfeng colluded with local thugs and, under the pretense of cracking down on a monopoly, ransacked my father's academy, leaving our entire family destitute on the streets. With his dying breath, he sneered and choked me, Lin Qinghe, it's all because of a bitch like you that Chen Lan hanged herself. You and your whole family should pay with your lives for her. You deserve to starve in the gutter, in that abandoned factory on the rainy night. After assaulting me, he still wasn't satisfied. He had someone bring an iron rod and brutally broke all my limbs. Now, Reborn, I will no longer interfere with the fate of this ungrateful wretch. Two childhood friend gone astray, Li Zhongfeng's parents left him at home and never returned. He struggled to survive alone in the countryside, often going hungry and lacking proper clothing. Yet, he was exceptionally bright from a young age, able to recite the entire Xinhua dictionary by heart at just 5 years old. After he started school, my father, mindful of their old family connection and worried his talent would be wasted in the poor rural conditions, made special arrangements to have him brought from the countryside to the county town. I loved him as if he were my own son, enrolling him in the best tutoring center in the entire county and meticulously selecting everything for him, from food and clothing to daily necessities. After he won first place in county and city-level competitions one after another, this overseas opportunity was the final step to completely change his destiny. But I had already made up my mind to let Li Zhongfeng walk his own path, and I resolved not to meddle in his affairs ever again. On the day of the interview, Dad had the driver polish the car until it gleamed first thing in the morning and waited cheerfully in the courtyard. Before long, Mom came running in a panic. Guoqiang, it's terrible, Zhongfeng, he's gone. Dad thought he must have misheard. What do you mean, gone? I've searched the entire house, the bathroom, the rooftop. Everywhere. But there's no sign of Zhang Feng. Dad's face went pale, and he staggered. I rushed forward to steady him. Don't panic, Dad. Maybe he just went ahead to the factory to report in by himself. He patted my hand and said, Qinghe has a point. Alright, Lao Zhang. Take a few colleagues and search the area around the house again, thoroughly. Shao Li, take the motorcycle and check all the places Zhang Feng usually goes, including his friends' houses. Go, quickly. The search went on until the foreign VIP who had come for the interview had already departed. Only then did the driver quietly lean in and whisper a few words into my father's ear. What did you say? You saw it with your own eyes. The driver nodded with a pained expression. It's the absolute truth. Dean Lin, father, his face livid, rushed over with a few men, seeing Qianlan cradled in Li Zhangfeng's arms. He was so enraged he immediately raised his hand and slapped her. Li Zhangfeng, heart aching, shielded Qianlan behind him, his face full of defiance. Uncle Lin, I was the one who got drunk and disgraced Qianlan. If you're going to blame anyone, blame me alone. Don't drag an innocent person into this. Nonsense, father roared, furious. You were drunk and didn't know any better. But this factory girl was stone cold sober. Why didn't she cry out or make a sound the entire time? She just stood by and watched you miss your interview, ruining your future. Zhang Feng, you've been played for a fool. After hearing this, Qianlan bit her lip tightly and remained silent, yet she put on an expression of the most profound grievance. Seeing this, Li Zhangfeng said with deep sympathy, a young woman's reputation is more precious than anything. She'd be too afraid to speak up, let alone cry out for help. She was worried about her reputation. But do you realize that missing the factory's selection process without reason is tantamount to deceiving the leadership? That's a serious offense. Li Zhangfeng had been clever since childhood. Of course she understood the gravity of the situation. Missing the interview was my fault. I take full responsibility for my actions and will never drag Uncle Lin into this. Dad, who had been holding on by sheer will, went pale and fainted upon hearing those words. I quickly caught him, and together with the driver, helped him back into the house. Qinghe, Li Zhangfeng stopped me, his eyes filled with remorse. I know you've had feelings for me since we were young, but my heart already belongs to Qianlan. There's no room for anyone else. I'm sorry. I gave a faint smile. You flatter me, brother Zhangfeng. Some people are full of ambition but lack the substance to back it up. When they meet others of the same kind, they're naturally drawn to each other. Li Zhangfeng's expression instantly darkened. Qianlan looked aggrieved, as if she wanted to lash out but didn't dare. I was naive back then. I didn't understand that matters of the heart also require a consideration of social and familial compatibility. In my past life, I too resented why Li Zhangfeng was so infatuated with Qianlan, a woman of lowly birth and seemingly no merit. Now, I finally see it clearly. Li Zhangfeng came from the countryside to the county town, his lowly status coupled with his unwillingness to be ordinary. Isn't that mentality exactly the same as that of Qianlan, a factory girl at the bottom of society? Compared to someone like me, who could only offer silent concern without truly understanding his struggles, it's only natural they were more kindred spirits. I had a feeling things would take a turn for the worse, so I arranged for a doctor from the county hospital to be on standby at home. Now, that preparation has finally come in handy. Thank goodness Miss Lin had the foresight to have me on call, or your father would have been in real danger this time. I stood with my head bowed by my father's bedside. It wasn't foresight, I had simply finally seen Li Zhangfeng for who he truly was. Mom held my hand, gazing at Dad lying unconscious, her tears flowing ceaselessly. After Dad regained consciousness, Li Zhangfeng, who had been missing for a long time, finally showed up, but he wasn't there to apologize. Instead, Uncle Lin, I beg you, please give your blessing for me to marry Qianlan. 3. The marriage controversy. Father thought he must have misheard and pressed Li Zhangfeng for confirmation several times. You want to marry her? You heard correctly, Uncle Lin. I, Li Zhangfeng, swear I will marry no one but Qianlan in this lifetime. Her mother wiped away tears, trembling with rage. You foolish girl, have you lost your mind? Qianlan fell to her knees with a thud before her mother, her eyes brimming with tears. I am already Zhangfeng's woman. If I cannot marry him, I would rather die. Between the lines, she insisted on a proper, formal marriage, while deftly shifting all the blame onto Li Zhangfeng. It was all Li Zhangfeng who had ruined her virtue. She had done nothing wrong at all. How dare a swindler like you make a scene here? Lao Zhang, call the police and have her taken away. Upon hearing this, Li Zhangfeng held Qianlan tightly and cried out to his mother in agitation. Aunt Zhang has never treated me as one of the family. I ask you, if I were your own son, would you treat the love of his life this way? How absurd. Everyone in the Lin family knew that Li Zhongfeng was more like a child of the Lin household than I, their own flesh and blood. Ever since he came to our home, my mother would have the kitchen prepare special dishes and seasonal fruits for him for every single meal. I might not get to enjoy them daily, but Li Zhongfeng's portion was never missing. Even if he had a slight cold or fever, my father would take time off work to stay by his bedside, caring for him without leaving for a moment. My father doted on him so much that for all these years, he never lifted a finger for chores. Everything from food to clothing was provided for him, and he lived a life more comfortable than I, the biological daughter, ever did, in the end. He repaid our kindness with betrayal. What else could you call someone like that, if not an ungrateful wretch? Mom was so furious she nearly fainted. I tugged gently at Mom's sleeve and whispered, "Mom, let it go. The interview is over. Even if you drag her back here, it won't get Li Zhongfeng his chance to study abroad back." Having twisted the knife in Li Zhongfeng's wound, I pressed on. "Besides, you and Dad are only his adopted parents. You can control him for now. But can you really control him for the rest of his life? Why don't we just let them have their way and allow him to move out with Chen-Lan?" Upon hearing my suggestion for them to move out, Chen-Lan was visibly flustered. "Miss Lin, if you're jealous of me and want to kick me out, that's one thing. But Li Zhongfeng grew up with you. No matter how angry you are, you shouldn't drive him away too." He claimed to have Li Zhongfeng's best interests at heart, but deep down, he was afraid of moving out and enduring a life of hardship with him. His father didn't agree either. How could he stand by and watch the child he had poured his heart and soul into raising face such a bleak future? Propping up his frail body, he sat up, looked at Li Zhongfeng, and spoke with deep sincerity. "Have you ever considered that to achieve success and establish yourself in society, you'll need a well-bred wife to help you navigate social connections?" He shot Chen-Lan a contemptuous glance. "But this girl's whole family are idle, good-for-nothing layabouts from the streets. They won't just fail to help your future prospects, they'll only hold you back." Li Zhongfeng's eyes flickered, clearly wavering, but seeing Chen-Lan's tear-streaked face, he stubbornly insisted, "I don't care about any of that." His father clenched his fists and finally let out a long sigh. "All right then, I'll give you my blessing." 4. Rumors begin to swirl. How could you be so foolish, letting Zhongfeng run wild like that? After Li Zhongfeng left, Mother was so anxious she was stamping her feet. I poured Father a glass of warm water and tried to comfort Mother, saying, "Don't worry, I'm sure Father has his own plan." Dad patted my hand with a look of relief. "Qinghe, you're the one who truly understands me. People only grow up and mature after tasting hardship. Since he's made up his mind, let him experience the harsh realities of life for himself. He'll come to his senses one day." On the day Li Zhongfeng and Chen-Lan moved out, I personally handed Chen-Lan her factory personnel file. "From today onward, you are no longer an employee of our factory, and you have no further connection whatsoever to our Lin family. From now on, your married life is entirely in your own hands." Chen-Lan took the file and leafed through it several times. She wasn't very educated, and I couldn't figure out what she was looking for, so I asked, "What are you trying to find?" I'd already had the accountant settle Chen-Lan's wages, and I'd packed up all the clothes I'd previously given her for her to take. I couldn't think of anything else I owed her. Chen-Lan suddenly glared at me and said indignantly, "Li Zhongfeng grew up in your family. Now that he's starting a family and a career, shouldn't Dean Lin offer some support?" It finally dawned on me. She was blaming my parents for not giving them a settling down allowance. Standing beside her, Li Zhongfeng remained silent, but the resentment in his eyes was unmistakable. Clearly, he felt the same way. Humph, what an ungrateful wretch. According to China's marriage law, children have a legal obligation to support their parents. It's a child's duty to be filial, and those who violate this can face legal consequences. Am I right about that, Li Zhongfeng? He frowned impatiently. "So what if it is? What's your point?" I smiled faintly. "Since you're so well versed in the law, can you tell me which statute says that parents are obligated to buy their child a house, pay for their wedding, and fund their entire life? What is this? Treating my parents like a personal ATM?" My taunt made Li Zhongfeng's face turn pale, then flush with embarrassment. "It was you who saw how clever he was and insisted on bringing him from the countryside to the county town. Since you brought him here, you should see it through to the end." So that's what they were thinking. My parents only brought you to town for school and provided for your living and education. It's not a formal adoption. You can go back to the countryside anytime you want. My uncle and aunt, who never returned, were the ones who defied their family's warnings, got pregnant in secret, and eloped all those years ago. They abandoned their elderly parents and were never heard from again. Li Zhongfeng is truly their son, learning to be ungrateful at such a young age. Qianlan, don't grovel to her. As long as I have the ability, I'll make something of myself sooner or later. Oh, is that so? Well, I wish you the best of luck with that dream in advance. It's just that without my family's support, Li Zhongfeng would probably struggle to cover even his most basic living expenses. But I never expected that. In just half a month, a strange man would come knocking on my door. The man was dressed in rags, his hair a tangled mess, clearly from the lowest rungs of society. His beady little eyes greedily scanned my family's courtyard. When the driver blocked him from entering, he just squatted down at our main gate and started wailing, "My own relatives live here. What right do you have to keep me out? Everyone passing by, come and see this. Director Lin is throwing his weight around. The boy he raised ruined my sister's virtue. And now they won't even let me through the gate." My poor, beautiful younger sister had her heart broken by that family for nothing. His disgraceful behavior quickly drew a crowd of onlookers. I recognized him instantly. It was Qian San, Qianlan's good-for-nothing brother. If we let someone like him into our home, he'll surely spread malicious rumors about our family. I immediately blocked him at the door. My father has always been open and aboveboard. There's nothing he can't say in front of others. Let's settle this right here in front of everyone. Let them be the judge of who's right and who's wrong. As soon as I finished speaking, the onlookers in the crowd began nodding in agreement. Miss Lin is right. Dean Lin has an excellent reputation in our county. He's fair and just in all his dealings. You should speak your piece right here. Qian San glared at me with venom in his eyes and said in a chilling tone, "Fine, then I'll lay it all out right here, right now. Don't you dare regret this. Miss Lin, my brother-in-law had his own birth parents, you know, but that old fox Lin Guiqiang saw how clever the boy was, how much potential he had, and he just snatched him away from his real family. Not only was he torn from his parents for over a decade, but the Lin family constantly mistreated him, worked him like a dog, and now, just because he missed his chance to study abroad, they heartlessly threw him out on the street. I ask you all, is that any way to treat someone? After all they took from him, they just kick him to the curb when he's no longer useful." The onlookers sighed with disbelief. Who would have thought Dean Lin was that kind of person in private? I responded calmly. First of all, it's true that Li Zhongfeng was born in the countryside. See, she admits it. Qian San laughed triumphantly. Upon hearing the word countryside, some in the crowd wore expressions of sympathy. Conditions in the countryside are so poor, it's even hard for children to go to school. I continued along with what they were saying. That's right. As everyone knows, life in the countryside is tough, and educational resources are scarce. My father saw that Li Zhongfeng was naturally bright and talented. He couldn't bear to see him languish in the countryside, so he brought him to the county town. My father only wanted to provide him with a good learning environment and a better education. As for mistreatment, that is absolutely not true. Anyone can ask any of our neighbors or workers. Qian San spluttered furiously. Of course your own people would take your side. At that moment, a neatly dressed young man stepped forward. I'm Zhou Qingxi, a fellow worker of Li Zhongfeng at the factory. I can vouch for Miss Lin. Li Zhongfeng was dressed head to toe in designer clothes. With fair and smooth skin, there wasn't a single sign of any mistreatment. It's clear you're spreading malicious lies to slander Director Lin. You must have an ulterior motive. I nodded gratefully to him. Thank you, Zhou, for being honest. Qian San still wanted to argue. Now that he's ready to settle down and start a family, shouldn't you buy him a house? To give my sister a proper place to live? No, you shouldn't, I said firmly. Li Zhongfeng was so determined to marry your sister that he gave up his chance to go abroad. He swore up and down that he was a real man who could provide for his wife all on his own. He's got the backbone to stand on his own 2 feet, and you want my parents to keep bankrolling him? You're just trampling all over his pride. The onlookers were practically stunned when they heard Li Zhongfeng had given up a state-sponsored opportunity to study abroad, all for Qianlan. A bespectacled man in the crowd sneered, and here I thought Li Zhongfeng had some legitimate reason for missing the interview. Turns out it was all for a woman. So many of us are fighting tooth and nail for a chance to go abroad and gild our resumes, and he just throws it all away. What a waste of the state's investment and a betrayal of Dean Lin's decades of mentorship, an utter ingrate. How dare such an ungrateful wretch have the gall to ask the Lin family for money to buy a house? The sheer audacity. I'm ashamed to even work in the same factory as him. His impassioned speech was met with applause from the crowd. Well said. We look down on that kind of ingrate too. Seeing the situation turn against him, Qian San had already made himself scarce. After the crowd dispersed, I sincerely thanked Zhou Qingxi. Thank you for speaking up, Comrade Zhou. I'm truly grateful. He waved a dismissive hand and smiled. Not at all. I simply couldn't stand by and watch them bully a good person. Moreover, Miss Lin remained calm under pressure, spoke with clarity, and her reasoning was sound. You are truly a woman of remarkable talent. I have no such talent. It's just that having faced death once, I'm no longer as timid and fearful as I used to be. You flatter me, Comrade Zhou. I'm just trying to manage my own little household well. Running a tight ship at home is no easier than making your way in the world. I had simply spoken my mind, but there at the factory gate, Zhou Qingxi looked at me thoughtfully, his gaze sharp and penetrating. 5. The list is revealed. The day to announce the admissions list soon arrived. Li Zhongfeng didn't go to the interview, and our family had no interest in joining that particular circus either. The list for the overseas assignment is posted on the factory administration building. Today is just for public viewing. There's nothing special for us to see if we go. But Wang Li stubbornly dragged me out of the house. Who cares about some list? I want to check out the young guys at our factory. The Golden Jade department store was right across from the factory. Wang Li and I sat in a little restaurant on the second floor, ordering 2 milk teas and a few pastries, watching the steady stream of people coming and going down below. This year's study abroad list is going to be interesting. The factory's 2 best technicians are competing for the only overseas opportunity. Let's see who comes out on top, Wang Li muttered under her breath. These people probably still don't know that your Li Zhongfeng missed the interview. What a shame. Only the factory management knows the selection results. The workers outside are completely in the dark about the real situation. No sooner had she spoken than she nudged my arm. Look. Who's that? Across the street, unmistakably. Were Li Zhongfeng and Chen Lan. Chen Lan was carrying a shopping basket, as if she had just been out buying groceries and happened to be passing by. Seeing the crowd gathered at the factory gate, Li Zhongfeng's face darkened and he quickened his pace, eager to get away. Well, if it isn't Technician Li, the list is about to be announced. You've come at just the right time. Li Zhongfeng was about to refuse this so-called kindness when the crowd in front of the bulletin board suddenly stirred. Spring 1984, Overseas Study Placement, Zhou Qingxi. The worker was taken aback, meeting Li Zhongfeng's icy glare. He muttered awkwardly, why isn't it Technician Li? No wonder Li Zhongfeng looked so upset. Zhou Qingxi worked in the same technical department as him, yet they were constantly at odds. They clashed at work, and in private, they fought tooth and nail over the factory's outstanding production title. For Li Zhongfeng, if anyone else had gotten this opportunity, he might have let it slide. The fact that Zhou Qingxi was the only one chosen filled him with such bitter envy that he tossed and turned all night, utterly tormented. Li Zhongfeng coldly shook off the person's hand, as she turned to leave. A flash of unconcealed disappointment and anguish passed through her eyes. Chen Lan stepped forward, just in time to witness his dejection. Wang Li nudged me again and whispered, look, the show's about to start. Chen Lan's eyes welled up with tears as she looked at Li Zhongfeng with a wounded expression. Zhongfeng, are you upset with me? Li Zhongfeng clenched his fists, holding himself back. Finally, he reached out and gently tucked a stray strand of Chen Lan's wind-blown hair behind her ear. How could I be? Even if I don't go abroad, my future achievements won't necessarily be any less than theirs. Wang Li was utterly astonished, clicking her tongue in amazement. So that's what works on Li Zhongfeng. I don't care what trouble he's gotten himself into. It's just that his unexplained absence from the national selection, the factory management didn't pursue it earlier because they were busy screening candidates and didn't have time to deal with it. Now that the list has been announced, I'm afraid our family will be implicated as well. I rushed home in a hurry and told my father about the whole thing. Dad snorted coldly. If the factory management really wanted to hold someone accountable, why would they wait until now? It was Zhou Qingxi, the newly elected official, who put in a good word for our family. The leadership is reasonable. They understand that in this Li Zhongfeng business, our family was also a victim. That's why they let it go. Dad has always been a fair and upright man, and with Zhou Qingxi's help in pleading our case, we managed to avoid any trouble. But as for Li Zhongfeng, what a shame about Zhongfeng. Dad sighed. I'm afraid a promotion is just not in the cards for him in this lifetime, given that he squandered the factory's investment in him. Merely revoking his promotion eligibility isn't a particularly harsh punishment. But how many decades does one have to start all over again? 6. Blocking the road for a wedding. Before I knew it, I had no time to dwell on it further. Zhou Qingxi's mother came to our house to propose the marriage. Mother asked for my opinion. It's my fault, she said. I always assumed you'd eventually marry. I never gave your marriage prospects serious thought. She patted my hand with a smile. your father and I think Zhou Qingxi is a fine match. He comes from a respectable family, is steady and reliable, and has the chance to go abroad to further his education. So many girls at the factory have had a crush on him, yet he's never shown interest in any of them. He's a man of deep loyalty and feeling, unlike your. At the mention of Li Zhongfeng, a look of concern reappeared on Mother's face. I set down the half-knitted sweater. I'm quite fond of Comrade Zhou as well. He's open-minded and understanding, and he respects my thoughts and opinions, a rare quality in today's society. After the matchmaker's visit and the exchange of gifts, the wedding date was swiftly set. On that day, amidst the deafening clamor of gongs, drums, and firecrackers, I put on my red bridal veil and stepped into the wedding car. As I sat inside and the car engine started, a hand with distinct knuckles, slender yet strong, reached in through the window. Here, my dear, a voice said, have something sweet first. It was a piece of chocolate. I took it and took a small bite. A sweet flavor melted on my tongue. The wedding car hadn't gone far when it suddenly stopped. Outside, the sound of an argument rose and fell. Peeking out from behind the curtain, I saw a dilapidated bicycle pulling a crude bridal sedan chair, locked in a standoff with us at the intersection, neither side willing to yield. As for Li Zhongfeng, though he wore a red groom's outfit, the clothes were crumpled and utterly lacking in luster. In just a few months, he had wasted away. His complexion sallow and gaunt, the wedding sedan behind him was shabby and worn, with patches even sewn onto its curtain. There wasn't a single decent piece of dowry following the sedan. If not for Li Zhongfeng wearing the groom's attire, who would have guessed this was a wedding? Li Zhongfeng seemed to sense someone's gaze. Without any pretense, he looked directly at me. I quickly let the curtain fall back into place and smoothed my hair. After the wedding, Li Zhongfeng came to see me in secret. Qinghe, why did you marry Zhou Qingxi? You know perfectly well he and I don't get along, so why would you? I didn't want to discuss it further, so I gave a dismissive reply. It's enough that he's a good man. It suits me just fine that he doesn't get along with Li Zhongfeng. That way, I won't have to see her all the time after I'm married. Marriage is a serious matter. How can you be so rash about it? Qinghe, be honest with me. Do you still have feelings for me? Are you rushing into this marriage just to get back at me and Chenlan? The sheer audacity of it almost made me sick to my stomach. Seeing me staring at him in silence, he actually had the nerve to say, Qinghe, I regret it. I used to think it was just a missed opportunity to go abroad, even if I couldn't go this time. Plenty of master craftsmen at the factory had become technical experts without ever leaving the country. The corner of my mouth lifted in a faint, scornful smile. My eyes brimming with derision. He's always had an inflated opinion of himself, acting as if the world owes him every good fortune. What makes him think everything and everyone should revolve around him? Chenlan's place was a complete dump. The room was so cramped you could barely turn around, and the roof leaked whenever it rained. The few technical manuals I brought back from abroad were all soaked through. I had planned to take the books out to dry the next day, to try and salvage them. But as soon as I got up, I saw Qian San selling all that precious material to the recycling station as if it were scrap paper. Hearing his complaint, I couldn't help but feel it was both laughable and tragic. Those technical manuals, which Li Zhongfeng usually guarded more fiercely than his own life, he wouldn't even let me flip through them, had been sold off as waste paper by that illiterate Qian San. So what? Chenlan and her family, you chose them yourself, didn't you? But I regret it. Qinghe, you saw I was about to make a mistake. Why didn't you stop me? If you had stopped me back then, I would be the one studying abroad now, the one getting the special promotion at the factory upon my return, and the one marrying you, would have been me. How absurd, wasn't it because I stood in his way in my past life that I was repaid with his ingratitude? Leading to the tragic death of my entire family, he blames me simply to avoid the reputation of being heartless and ungrateful, making me the villain so he can have both a successful career and love in the future. What a clever, scheming plan. However, I've come to understand one thing. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. You've made your bed, now lie in it. Respect other people's choices and rein in your misplaced sympathy. I pushed him away. Li Zhongfeng, you're mistaken. Whether you marry Chenlan or not has absolutely nothing to do with me. In this lifetime, whether he succeeds or fails, becomes wealthy or remains poor, it has no connection whatsoever to our Lin family. 7. Severing all ties. On the day of the homecoming visit, when my parents saw me, their faces were beaming with apparent joy, yet an ineffable worry clouded their brows. With Zhou Qingxi present, it wasn't appropriate for me to ask too many questions. So I seized the opportunity while my mother was showing me the new house to inquire. Mother said that after Qian San discovered how valuable Li Zhongfeng's technical manuals were, instead of selling them as scrap paper, he sold the entire lot at a low price to a private factory he knew. The money he got his hands on wasn't spent on fixing the house or buying food, let alone getting Zhongfeng the supplies he needed for work. Every last bit of it was gambled away. When Zhongfeng went to collect the debt, that Qian San not only refused to pay, but he cursed Zhongfeng, calling him a useless good-for-nothing who couldn't earn a penny but sure could eat his fill. To be fair, he wasn't wrong. Apart from being a good student, Li Zhongfeng really didn't have any practical skills to speak of. Insulting him was bad enough, but they actually beat Zhongfeng up. And that heartless girl Qianlan just stood by and watched her brother beat Zhongfeng half to death. They even disfigured his face. At this point, my mother's eyes welled up with tears. Our factory's policy states that anyone with a prominent facial scar cannot be assigned to work on the export production line. So, even if the rules are relaxed in 10 years, Li Zhongfeng will no longer be young. I patted my mother's back gently to comfort her, saying, "It's all right if he can't get into the foreign trade sector. As long as he's willing to work diligently, with his knowledge, he can support himself as a technician or an engineer." Hearing this, Mom immediately caught my drift. "Qinghe, are you saying that?" "Mom, I'll say it again, he's not your and Dad's biological son. You can never truly know what's in a person's heart. He was ungrateful even when everything was going his way. So there's no point in hoping for anything now." My parents finally saw Li Zhongfeng for the ungrateful wretch he was and resolved to cut all ties with him for good. 8. The door is shut. To my shock, 3 months later, Li Zhongfeng was kneeling at my doorstep with Qianlan, who was heavily pregnant. Only my mother was home, and I was worried she couldn't handle the situation. As soon as we got the news, Zhou Qingxi rushed back with me. After just a few short months, a scar now ran from the corner of Li Zhongfeng's eyebrow down to his jaw, completely disfiguring his once handsome features. His jet black hair was now streaked with gray, and the way he knelt there, hunched over, made it hard to believe he was only in his early 20s. Seeing Zhou Qingxi carefully supporting me, Li Zhongfeng's eyes were filled with envy and resentment. Before his marriage, he had always been one step ahead of Zhou Qingxi in every way. Now, just a few months later, Zhou Qingxi has returned from abroad with a boundless future. While he is so poor he doesn't even have a decent set of clothes. For someone as proud as Li Zhongfeng, how could he not be bitter? "Qinghe, please, go put in a good word with Uncle Lin for us. Let me and Qianlan come back home." If Uncle Lin hadn't been so strict with me back then, I wouldn't have rebelled and done such a foolish thing. From now on, I won't talk back to him anymore. I'll listen to whatever he says. Even now, he still doesn't understand what he did wrong. His words still imply that my father was too controlling. "Sister Qinghe," Qianlan spoke, her face ashen, "let's leave the unpleasantness in the past. We're all family now. The child in my womb will one day call you aunt." She's certainly quick to claim family ties. Too bad I have absolutely no intention of acknowledging them. Seeing my silence, she had the nerve to continue. "Zhongfeng may never get to go abroad in this lifetime, but our child will carry on his ambition. They'll get into a top university, and bring honor to the Lin family too." "Oh, really?" "So, what she's saying is, our family is supposed to foot the bill for their child's education. You and I were merely factory colleagues in the past, and even that relationship no longer exists. Therefore, you should address me as Miss Lin. As for Li Zhongfeng, you once claimed that everyone in the Lin family was cold and heartless, and that only Qianlan looked past your background, treated you with genuine sincerity, and secretly brought you good food and useful items. But did it ever occur to you that without my tacit permission, how could a common factory girl like her have obtained those imported foods and little luxuries?" The moment these words were spoken, the complexions of the two people kneeling at my doorstep changed dramatically. Qianlan's face turned deathly pale. She clearly never expected that I had known all along about her past affair with Li Zhongfeng, yet had kept it to myself and never exposed it, not even at the wedding. Now, with everything changed, I suddenly tore off her mask. She cried out in disbelief. "How could you possibly know? It's impossible. In my past life, I never figured it out, even until the moment I died. Qianlan was so plain looking, and there were so many pretty girls at the factory. Why was Li Zhongfeng so set on her? In this new life, I observed carefully and finally uncovered the trick." Li Zhongfeng glared fiercely at Qianlan. "Is what Qinghe said true?" "No, it's not true. I saved up all those things for you through my own hard work." But the panic in her eyes betrayed her guilt. Furious, Li Zhongfeng slapped her hard across the face. You bitch, you've ruined my entire life. If you hadn't drugged my drink and seduced me, making me miss my chance to go abroad, I'd be a section chief by now. I wouldn't be living hand-to-mouth like this. Freezing in the bitter cold without even a decent winter coat to my name, you've ruined my future, you've ruined my entire life. As he spoke, he lunged forward and seized Qianlan by the throat. The murderous look in his eyes was the spitting image of Li Zhongfeng from my past life, who had shown me no mercy. It's too public here, Li Zhongfeng, settle your score back at your own place. To my shock, the moment I finished speaking, Qianlan let out a piercing scream, a pool of crimson spreading beneath her. Seeing this, Li Zhongfeng's face went deathly pale. He released his grip and shouted at me, quick, carry her inside, get a doctor. Zhou Qingxi, who had been standing silently beside me, asked, should we take them inside? A life is truly hanging in the balance, but it was Li Zhongfeng herself who caused Qianlan's premature labor, not us. If I let my guard down and allow them inside to call a doctor, and something were to happen to Qianlan or the baby, Li Zhongfeng would surely blame us for the rest of our lives. I shook my head. The woman who runs the pharmacy across the street is a midwife. You should carry Qianlan over there immediately. It'll be much faster than waiting for a doctor here. But I had underestimated the depths of human malice. Even as Qianlan moaned in agony, Li Zhongfeng stubbornly used her and the unborn child as leverage to threaten me into letting them in. Qianlan, just hold on a little longer. If we can't find a decent place for the child to live, we might as well not have one at all. Qinghe is so kind-hearted, she would never stand by and watch someone in need. What were they doing all this time? When they decided to have a child, did they ever stop to think how that drafty shack of theirs could possibly provide shelter from the storm? The baby's almost here, and we have nothing. And now you have the nerve to threaten me, Li Zhongfeng. You've gone too far. Don't forget, Qianlan's brother is a desperate man. If anything happens to her, you can kiss what's left of your pretty face goodbye. With that, I took Zhou Qingxi's hand and went home. No matter how Li Zhongfeng pleaded or raged, my door was closed to him for good. 9. The end is sealed. 5 days later, news arrived simultaneously that Chen Lanqing's daughter and Li Zhongfeng had hanged themselves. Upon hearing this, father said not a word. Seeming to age 10 years in an instant, after a long silence, he finally asked the messenger in a low voice, did he leave any last words? With a strange expression, the man replied, yes. The night before he hanged himself, he kept muttering deliriously about a dream he had, where he returned from studying abroad and became the factory director, and to think she kept saying this life was all a lie. My parents didn't understand what she meant, dismissing it as the delirious ramblings of a disturbed mind before her death. Only I knew the truth. Li Zhongfeng took her own life most likely because she remembered everything from her past life. After waking to that memory, the chasm between her harsh reality and her dreams was too vast to bear, leading her to choose death. I don't know how many second chances life gives, but I'm certain that a petty, self-serving person like Li Zhongfeng, who blames everyone and everything when trouble arises, will never have a good ending, no matter how many times they're reborn. Zhou Qingxi came to pick me up. As light snow began to fall, I reached out to catch a flake, but he anxiously pulled my hand into his pocket to warm it. You're a mother now, and still so childish. What if you catch a cold? I smiled and linked my arm with his. Right, I'm not a child. I'm a child's mother. Zhou Qingxi picked me up in joyful surprise. Really, I'm going to be a father. Qinghe, you are the best gift heaven has ever given me. Yes, and so are you. With a new lease on life, with him and our baby, and with my loving parents, this is the most precious gift heaven has given me. The end. That's all for the first story. Don't go away. The next one is even more intense. My officer husband Shen Jing's childhood sweetheart, Zhong Tian, fell down the stairs, got a concussion, and swore up and down that I was the one who pushed her. To get revenge for Zhong Tian, Shen Jingza ignored my desperate pleas and struggles, ordering the guards to forcibly drag me, pregnant as I was, away to solitary confinement. When they finally let me out, I was covered in blood. I had lost the baby. Shen Jingza seemed to be filled with remorse. He gently took my hand and told me that we were still young and could have another child. I just sneered coldly. There would be no child for him and me. I intentionally pummeled my own abdomen to induce a miscarriage, because I knew, both Shen Jingza and the child in my womb were ungrateful wretches. For the sake of Zhong Tian, they would drive me to the brink of despair, to die without a grave. I've lived one lifetime as the fish on the chopping block, at the mercy of others. In this life, I will change my tragic fate ahead of time. Years later, I became a financial titan, amassing immense wealth. Meanwhile, Shinjingza, who had soared to great heights in the previous life, was reduced to a destitute and worthless wreck. Comrade, the baby in your womb has suffered a severe impact. You're showing signs of a threatened miscarriage. You must stay in bed and rest completely for the next few days, or we might not be able to save the child. The voice beside my ear came in and out, fragmented. The pain radiating from my abdomen and body slowly brought my hazy consciousness back into focus. A large red slogan on a green wall, appealing door. Is this something that would only exist 40 years ago? But wait, didn't I already die? After Shinjingza had me thrown in prison for 5 years, I contracted a terminal illness and died in agony. Why would someone who's already dead be seeing a scene from 40 years in the past? Before I could fully process my thoughts, the hospital room door was violently flung open. A young man in a military uniform, radiating a chilling aura, rushed to the side of my hospital bed. Li Xiangwan, why did you push Tian so viciously? Do you have any idea she almost died? The words I didn't died on my lips. What's the point in denying or explaining? In my past life, I denied it and explained it wasn't my fault, but Shinjingza simply didn't believe me. He only trusted Zhong Tian. Tian, Shinjingza roared at me, his face a mask of fury. My gaze fell upon the face of a Shinjingza who looked decades younger. Shinjingza in his 20s was truly, exceptionally handsome, with his high-bridged nose and sculpted features. Even those fiery eyes glaring at me were utterly captivating. In my past life, I was utterly infatuated with Shinjingza's face. For him, I bore all without complaint, and for him, I groveled and lost all dignity. Yet in the end, I met a miserable and untimely end. How naive I was back then. Even after being framed by Zhong Tian and sent to prison by Shinjingza. Even after being diagnosed with a terminal illness and given only days to live, my thoughts were still consumed by Shinjingza. I convinced myself it was all Zhong Tiantian's scheme, that Shinjingza was deceived and is innocent. It wasn't until I learned I had cancer and only had a few days left that I asked my doctor to arrange a meeting with Shinjingza and my son. But, they heartlessly refused. My doctor told me with sympathy that Shinjingza was going abroad with Zhong Tian to fulfill her birthday wish and had no time to see me. Let me reflect on my mistakes properly in this cell. My son also sent a message, telling me to just go ahead and die if I'm going to, so I wouldn't embarrass him or put his father, Shinjingza, in a difficult position. I was already terminally ill, hanging on by a thread. Upon hearing those words, I coughed up blood and collapsed. I never expected to get a second chance, to see Shinjingza's youthful face again, to look upon the man I had loved for decades, yet had failed. The love I felt for the man who had been with me for decades vanished completely. In my past life, if Shinjingza had just been honest with me and told me directly that the person he loved was Zhong Tian, I would have stepped aside for his sake, no matter how much I loved him. I would have withdrawn and let him have his happiness, but Shinjingza never told me he loved Zhong Tian. He kept insisting he only wanted to help her out of a sense of obligation, that I only ever saw Zhong Tian as a younger sister. Under the noble pretense of repaying a debt of gratitude, he and Zhong Tian committed every kind of debauchery imaginable. A bleak life spent toiling for others' benefit. And the despair and agony before death, I couldn't suppress the intense hatred welling up in my heart. I stared fixedly at Shinjingza. If I could, I'd take a vicious bite out of Shinjingza, to vent the rage for my poor, innocent self from my past life. Shinjingza didn't notice the change in my expression and continued to roar at me. I never imagined you could be such a vicious, shameless person, Li Xiangwan. Don't think your pregnancy will save you from punishment. I'm telling you, this time, I won't let you get away with it. Shinjingza's words drew a cold laugh from me. And just how do you plan on not letting me off the hook? You will apologize to Tian, and I'm confining you to your room. You need to reflect deeply on your mistakes. Same old story. As expected, in my past life, Shinjingza had presented me with the same two non-negotiable demands. First, apologize to Zhong Tian and admit your wrongdoing. Second, be confined to reflect on your mistakes and accept punishment. Both conditions are non-negotiable. No one believed my explanation, and in the end, I was forced to apologize to Zhong Tian. I thought Shinjingza would let me off the hook, considering our 5 years of marriage and the fact that I was pregnant, but I was overthinking it. On the very day I was discharged from the hospital, Shinjingza heartlessly had the guards escort me straight to the solitary confinement cell. I begged Shinjingza with tears streaming down my face, pleading that I was pregnant and asking him to spare me for the sake of the child I was carrying. He could punish me later, but Shinjingza showed not a shred of mercy. He said I was malicious and unrepentant, and that I must pay for my actions. The price was a lesson I'll never forget, and I'll never make that mistake again. For 7 days of pitch-black solitary confinement, the only thing I could do was count the numbers. Waiting to be let out, Shinjingza never came to see me once in those 7 days, and the guards had completely forgotten they were holding a pregnant woman in that cell. It wasn't until Shinjingza returned from accompanying Zhong Tiantian to the capital for medical treatment that they finally discovered I was still locked in the solitary confinement cell. A normal person would die after 7 days without food or water. By the time I was released, I was already in a deep coma. I was incredibly lucky to survive. I wasn't quite dead, and after several days of emergency medical care, I was pulled back from the brink, having gone without sustenance for a week. My bodily functions were severely damaged, and I developed a serious stomach condition. This was likely one of the reasons I later developed a terminal cancer. When I was released, Shinjingza felt guilty for a time and treated me very well. I thought he loved me, and out of that love, I forgave him, but later, Zhong Tiantian told me that Shinjingza was only nice to me because he was afraid I would report him to his superiors. After all, if I had died in solitary confinement, a double tragedy, it would have damaged Shinjingza's career prospects. I didn't believe Zhong Tiantian's words, and so I fell into one vicious cycle after another. In my past life, the pitiful me, right up until my death, kept feeding myself lies, believing that Shinjingza loved me and that he was merely deceived by Zhong Tiantian. In this life, knowing the full story of the past, I will never again be fooled by Shinjingza's facade, because no love should be an endless source of pain. I looked Shinjingza straight in the eye, enunciating each word clearly. I did nothing wrong, I won't apologize, and you have no right to confine me. Shinjingza flew into a rage upon hearing this. Are you sure about that? Yes, I'm absolutely sure. Since you're being so stubborn and unreasonable, don't blame me for what happens next. Shinjingza's veins bulged on his forehead as he shouted to the guards outside, take Li Xiangwan to the solitary confinement cell for reflection. I was dragged to the confinement cell by the guards. In my past life, I cared about saving face, both my own and Shinjingza's, so I chose to remain silent as the guards escorted me to the confinement cell. I'll never be that foolish again. The moment the guards moved to seize me, I screamed at the top of my lungs, murder. Shinjingza is trying to kill me, his lawful wife, and the child in my womb, all for his mistress Zhong Tiantian. Help, I've been wronged. Shinjingza never expected me to cry out my grievances so shamelessly, with no regard for my own dignity. With everyone staring and whispering, Shinjingza was utterly humiliated. Left with no other choice, he clamped his hand over my mouth himself, fueled by hatred. I sank my teeth viciously into the hand silencing me. Blood seeped into my mouth, its metallic tang filling it, and I saw Shinjingza's face contort in pain. Does it hurt? Of course it hurts. I'm bleeding. But this pain is nothing compared to what I suffered in my past life. I was escorted to the solitary confinement cell with a crowd watching the whole way. Everyone who saw it was buzzing with gossip. What did Li Xiangwan do to deserve being locked up like this? I heard she pushed Zhong Tiantian. She caused her serious injuries. So Chief Shin is doing the right thing by making Li Xiangwan face the consequences, even if she's family. Oh, is that so? Well, she brought that on herself, didn't she? I wouldn't go that far. Li Xiangwan has such a gentle nature, it's hard to believe she could be so vicious. Besides, isn't she pregnant? Look, her forehead is still bleeding. For Chief Shin to treat his own wife like this over an outsider is just heartless. Right, exactly. Chief Shin is far too concerned about that Zhong Tiantian. Chief Shin is a person of strong principles, clear on gratitude and grudges. She's repaying a debt of kindness to Zhong Tiantian. Even so, it feels excessive. What about Li Xiangwan, who's pregnant? The law doesn't impose the death penalty immediately on a pregnant woman, even for murder, especially since this is just a simple dispute. Chief Shin is far too protective of Zhong Tiantian. The surrounding whispers turned Shinjingza's face ashen. He never dreamed in his wildest nightmares that someone as gentle and demure as me could cause him such profound humiliation. After I was thrown into the confinement cell, he ordered the guard to lock the door. Li Xiangwan, I never imagined you could be such a shrew. I was only going to lock you up for 7 days, but seeing you like this, 7 days is clearly not enough. You can reflect on your behavior in there for a fortnight. With those words, Shinjingza stormed off in a rage. The door to the solitary confinement cell slammed shut, plunging the interior into pitch-black darkness. In my past life, I endured 7 terrifying days here, hovering between life and death in a coma. After finally recovering, I was then framed by Zhong Tian, which led to a premature birth. To deliver that wretched child in my womb, I suffered immensely, hemorrhaged severely, and had my uterus removed. I poured all my love into the only child I carried within me, just like his vile father Shinjingzi. This wretched bastard is cruel and shameless. He actually prefers Zhong Tian over me, his own birth mother. Recalling the agony of my past life, a cold sneer curled at the corner of my lips. I won't give this despicable bastard a chance to live. I clenched my hand into a fist and began pounding it, blow after blow, into my lower abdomen. Half an hour later, my agonized screams tore through the air. Someone who heard the noise came and opened the cell door, finding me lying on the floor, covered in blood. I had a miscarriage, covered in blood. I was rushed to the hospital. Shinjingzi was at Zhong Tiantian's bedside when a guard told him I had miscarried and been taken to the hospital. He shot to his feet. He hurriedly dashed out of the room, completely missing the triumphant smile in Zhong Tiantian's eyes from her hospital bed, after the DC procedure. As I was wheeled out of the operating room, the first thing I saw was Shinjingzi's grim face waiting outside. He took a step forward, reaching for my hand. I gave him a single word in response: "Get lost." Shinjingzi took 2 steps back, watching blankly as the nurse wheeled me past him. After the nurse finished administering my 4-drip, Shinjingzi actually followed me back into the room. He stood inside the hospital room, his face wearing a rare expression of sorrow. Is he upset because of the loss of the child? How could that be? In our past life, that wretched child who was always devoted to Zhong Tian kept saying that if he hadn't existed, Shinjingzi would have divorced me long ago and married Zhong Tian. It was only because of him that Shinjingzi couldn't bring himself to end this hollow marriage of ours. So now that the bastard is gone, Shinjingzi must be overjoyed, right? I watched as Shinjingzi slowly walked to the bedside. I stared at him with an indifferent gaze, devoid of any joy or sorrow. Shinjingzi reached out to touch me, but perhaps my expression was too cold, and he withdrew his hand. He said in a strained voice, "Xiangwan, I never expected this to happen with the baby. You need to rest and recover. We can still have another child in the future." Ha, another child. Is this just to placate me? After all, something as significant as my miscarriage in the confinement cell must have already spread throughout the entire military district. Shinjingzi's strict military discipline is admirable, but to be so heartless to his own partner, I wonder what people will say about him. The gossip. Not to mention that my miscarriage somehow involves another woman. Shinjingzi's obvious favoritism towards Zhong Tian is plain for all to see. I imagine the gossip must have started circulating by now, right? I'll definitely pour more fuel on the fire and make the rumors spread even wilder. As I was thinking this, a nurse hurriedly pushed the door open, looking for Shinjingzi. "Chief Shen, Comrade Zhong has fainted after a fall." According to the nurse, Zhong Tian wanted to come see me after learning about my miscarriage, but she was far too weak. She only managed a few steps before collapsing and losing consciousness right there in the hallway. Zhong Tian has always been one for using these kinds of tricks to get Shinjingzi's attention. It had always worked like a charm in the past, but this time, her plan might just backfire. Shinjingzi was worried that Zhong Tian had left. I lay in bed, sobbing uncontrollably, tears streaming down my face. Hearing my wails, the nurses, doctors, and even people from the neighboring ward came over. Everyone knew I had lost my child and offered their kind words of comfort. Through my tears, I recounted to the nurses, doctors, and curious fellow patients every single thing Zhong Tian and Shinjingzi had done, all their dirty deeds. Ever since Zhong Tian came along, my husband Shinjingzi's heart has been completely and utterly stolen. Shinjingzi got her a job and even gave over half his salary for Zhong Tian to spend. Zhong Tian clings to Shinjingzi all day long, deliberately provoking me to start arguments with him, and constantly finds excuses to call him away. Shinjingzi, she doesn't even hesitate to call him over late at night, using the excuse of being scared of thunder and rain, keeping him by her side the entire night. Zhong Tian even had the audacity to threaten to harm my unborn child to force me into divorcing Shinjingzi. Everything I've said is the truth about what Zhong Tian did, and the people in the military district have seen it with their own eyes. We just didn't know the two of them were alone together in a room late at night, so the way everyone looked at them changed completely. On top of that, I've now lost the baby. Shinjingzi has shown me no care or concern after the miscarriage, yet he's always at Zhong Tian's beck and call. Everyone saw how he was at her beck and call. The nurses, doctors, and fellow patients were all seething with righteous indignation, judging by their expressions. I knew the news of Shen Jingze's affair with Zhong Tian would spread throughout the entire military compound in no time. Shen Jingze was summoned for a talk by his superiors. Shen Jingze explained to his superior that his relationship with Zhong Tian was completely innocent, and that he was only helping her out of a sense of gratitude. The superior believed Shen Jingze, but the rumors circulating outside were simply too rampant. The superior was Shen Jingze's longtime boss who thought very highly of him, and reminded Shen to be mindful of appearances and maintain his distance from Zhong Tian. When Shen Jingze appeared at the hospital again, his entire demeanor was dark and sullen. The moment he shut the door, he warned me, "Li Xiangwan, you almost ruined me. Because of your recklessness, I got called in by the boss. Do you have any idea how much this could damage my future promotions?" I gave a slight, bitter smile. Good. That's exactly what I wanted in my past life. I swallowed my pride and endured all the humiliation, while Shen Jingze and Zhong Tian lived it up, acting all high and mighty. After going through such a harrowing experience, how could I possibly let him enjoy a smooth and prosperous political career in this life like he did in the last? Since I've been reborn, I might as well do something to make my enemies miserable. Right, Shen Jingze has no idea what's going on in my mind. He knows I love him deeply and care immensely about his future. He's certain I'll follow his every word, without a single complaint or regret. He instructed me, "From now on, you need to clarify each and every one of the rumors circulating outside. You must make everyone understand that my relationship with Zhong Tian is purely that of a brother and sister. Is it really just a sibling bond? As far as I know, you two aren't related by blood at all," I retorted. Seeing my sarcastic smile, Shen Jingze found it grating and continued unhappily. "If I had any feelings for Zhong Tian, why on earth would I have married you?" That's exactly how he brainwashed me in my past life, and foolishly, I believed him. Hearing his familiar excuse now, I couldn't help but laugh again. Shen Jingze grew somewhat annoyed by my laughter. "Xiangwan, this is not the time for tantrums or jealousy. It's because you wouldn't listen that I've ended up in this mess. I'm warning you, you'd better behave. If you keep being this unreasonable, I'll divorce you." Divorce was exactly what I wanted. I nodded immediately. "Fine, let's get a divorce. We'll go right now." Shen Jingze hadn't expected me to say that, and his expression froze. "What nonsense are you talking?" "I'm not talking nonsense. I'd rather get a clean divorce than share my husband with another woman. Let's go our separate ways and each find our own future." Hearing this, Shen Jingze was furious. "What do you mean by that? Li Xiangwan, ours is a military marriage. It's not something you can just casually. You can get a divorce. So what? You're just going to put up with this for the rest of your life? Are you really going to let your dear sister be the other woman forever?" That term didn't exist back then. Shen Jingze was taken aback. "What other woman? What's that supposed to mean?" Shen Jingze was pressing me for an answer, but of course I wasn't going to explain it in detail. "Shen Jingze, if you want me to believe you, you must cut off all contact with Zhong Tian from now on. Can you do that?" To my surprise, Shen Jingze actually agreed. "From now on, I'll leave all matters concerning Zhong Tian to you. I promise I won't see her in private anymore." This development was different from my past life. While I expected Shen Jingze to make concessions after weighing the pros and cons for a promotion, this specific change was new. Zhong Tian, however, lacks his level of self-awareness. I'm certain that if she can't see Shen Jingze, she'll start stirring up trouble soon enough. And I'm actually looking forward to her making a move. Since I've been reborn, I might as well reclaim some of the grievances and suffering I endured in my past life. Right, Zhong Tian is unaware that Shen Jingze, for the sake of his political career, has already decided to keep his distance from her. She kept up the act, just like in a past life, feigning illness in the hospital and playing the victim, waiting for Shen Jingze to visit her. After waiting for days with no sign of Shen Jingze, Zhong Tian couldn't stand it anymore. She begged countless people to pass on messages, wildly exaggerating her condition. She spun a tale, hoping it would convince Shen Jingze to come see her. When Shen Jingze heard that Zhong Tian was coughing up blood, he was beside himself with worry. His superior had given him a direct order he couldn't disobey, so in the end, he had no choice but to go. Looking for me, Zhong Tian was fully expecting Shen Jingze to visit her, but instead, she got me, not seeing the Shen Jingze she'd been pining for. And after confirming no one else was around, Zhong Tian glared at me and demanded, "What are you doing here?" "Come to see you, to see what kind of trouble you're stirring up." I paced around the hospital room. "Weren't you supposed to be dying? You look perfectly fine. All rosy-cheeked and healthy, Zhong Tian." Don't you think faking an illness is a bit too cliché? Exposed. Zhong Tian dropped the act. Li Xiangwan, how does it feel to lose a child? Not good, is it? Your child died because of me. But Jingzi doesn't care about you. He only trusts me. For my sake, he has no choice but to wrong you, his legitimate wife. Your heart must be aching, isn't it? You're overthinking it, I said with a faint, indifferent smile. If it keeps Shen Jingzi away from a disgusting woman like you. What does losing a child matter? Zhong Tian, you probably don't know, but Shen Jingzi won't be coming to see you anymore. Zhong Tian was taken aback. What do you mean? Exactly what I said. There are rumors going around that you and Shen Jingzi are having an affair. To protect his reputation, he's going to start keeping his distance from you. Zhong Tian was stunned by my words. Li Xiangwan, what have you done? Don't rush, I'll explain it to you slowly. I walked to the bedside and looked down at Zhong Tian. Zhong Tian, I know your filthy thoughts. You just want to kill the child in my womb, break me and Shen Jingzi apart, so you can become Shen Jingzi's other half. Right, so I took the initiative to grant your wish. To tell you the truth, I was the one who ended the pregnancy. I was the one who deliberately leaked the news about my affair with Shen Jingzi. How could you? Are you out of your mind? Zhong Tian knew how precious the baby in my womb was to me, and how deeply I loved Shen Jingzi and cared about protecting his reputation. The fact that I would now willingly get rid of this bastard and tarnish Shen Jingzi's name was beyond Zhong Tian's comprehension, and it infuriated her to the core. Smoke. She knows exactly how devastating the consequences of my actions will be for her and Shen Jingzi. You shameless woman, how dare you use your own flesh and blood to scheme against me? Your heart is truly vile. Compared to you, I'm a mere amateur. Zhong Tian, starting now, I'm going to make you experience the pain I once endured. Oh, is that so? Then let's see who comes out on top. With that, Zhong Tian raised her hand and delivered 2 vicious slaps to her own face. 2 loud, sharp cracks rang out, and Zhong Tian's cheeks immediately swelled up grotesquely. She truly held nothing back against herself. A trickle of blood had already seeped from the corner of her mouth. After licking the crimson blood with her tongue, Zhong Tian glared at me with venomous hatred and cried out loudly, Li Xiangwan is attacking someone. Help. With that, she leapt off the bed and bolted barefoot toward the door. But Zhong Tian had only taken 2 steps when she found she couldn't move an inch. From behind, I grabbed Zhong Tian by the hair and yanked her back with a sharp tug. Just as Zhong Tian had slapped herself to frame me, I too pulled her hair with every ounce of strength I had. Quantity. I could see the pained grimace on Zhong Tian's face, amidst her screams. I grabbed Zhong Tian by the hair and slammed her head hard against the wall, again and again. Zhong Tian never expected me to resort to violence. After all, I used to be the ultimate pushover, gentle, kind, and timid. My savage, forceful blows forced screams from Zhong Tian, and the pain quickly knocked her unconscious. Seeing Zhong Tian lying unconscious on the floor, I stepped outside, rubbed my hands over my eyes a few times, and soon tears were streaming down my face. A nurse in the hallway, hearing the commotion, hurried over. Seeing me in such a pitiful state with tears streaming down my face, she immediately stopped and asked, Comrade Li, what's wrong? Who did this to you? The nurses who came were all familiar faces. During my hospitalization after the miscarriage, I had earned a great deal of sympathy from the doctors and nurses. On top of that, Zhong Tian wasn't even sick. She had been occupying a hospital bed the whole time, faking her illness, and the doctors and nurses were all fed up with her. I was sobbing uncontrollably, gasping for breath. I'm done for. I'm definitely done for. Zhong Tian, she slapped herself and framed me. Now she's pretending to be unconscious, lying on the ground. Slapped herself and fainted. Several nurses exchanged glances. Zhong Tian has a rather unpleasant disposition, throwing her weight around the hospital just because she has Shen Jingzi backing her up. The nurses were already annoyed by her condescending attitude. And learning that she was the one who came between me and Shen Jingzi only deepened their contempt for her. It's done, I kept crying. What should I do? What on earth should I do? Now I can't clear my name even if I jumped into the Yellow River. If only, Shen Jingzi is definitely going to blame me for this. I'm done for. This is outrageous. Comrade Li, don't be afraid, we'll back you up as witnesses. Several nurses immediately sided with me. Thank you, but she's still lying on the floor, pretending to be unconscious. How should we handle this? We'll go in with you. To have a look, accompanied by several nurses, I returned to the ward to find Zhong Tian lying unconscious on the floor. The nurses looked at her with disgust. Enough of this act, get up. The unconscious Zhong Tian, of course, gave no response. Wiping my tears, I walked over, knelt down, and reached out to touch her. Stop pretending, get up now. As I reached out to touch Zhong Tian, the needle I was holding between my fingers drove forcefully into her side. It was a large sewing needle, a good 6 or 7 centimeters long, that I had brought specifically for dealing with Zhong Tian. The effect of having a needle that long plunged into one's flesh was predictable. Zhong Tian, who had been unconscious, let out a sharp, pained cry, as Zhong Tian's eyes snapped open. I swiftly withdrew the needle and concealed it in my sleeve. A sharp pain jolted Zhong Tian upright, her eyes meeting the malicious gleam in my smile. Blinded by hatred and rage, Zhong Tian swung her hand and slapped me without a second thought. A nearby nurse grabbed Zhong Tian's wrist. Have you lost your mind? Seeing this, the other nurses rushed over and pinned down, and unable to move. Zhong Tian was stunned, though usually sharp and cunning in her schemes. After a moment of shock, she instantly reverted to her pitiable, heart-wrenching facade. She complained to the nurses holding her. Li Xiangwan hit me. She slapped my face and grabbed my hair, smashing my head against the wall. She assaulted me on purpose. I'm calling the police to have her arrested. Zhong Tian was convinced that telling the truth would earn her support, but instead, she was met with the nurses' scornful glances. Enough, Comrade Zhong, stop the act. We know you're putting on this whole show to frame Comrade Li. This kind of thinking of yours is completely unacceptable and must be corrected immediately. I'm not acting, I really am. My head was splitting with pain, my face ached, and of course, the spot on my waist where I jabbed myself with the needle throbbed terribly. Zhong Tian explained herself urgently, but no one believed her. Several nurses sided with me, saying, Comrade Li, don't be afraid, we'll definitely testify for you. This whole thing was orchestrated by Zhong Tian herself. A complete performance. Zhong Tian's head was throbbing, and her face ached too, but no one believed her. Several nurses were shouting about calling the police, even producing Zhong Tian's ridiculous medical record. You're faking illness to hog a hospital bed. We will report this truthfully. Zhong Tian backed down. The only reason she could manipulate Shen Jingzhe was because he cared for and liked her. They weren't her parents or family, so of course they weren't going to indulge her. The onlookers could see perfectly well what was right and what was wrong. Zhong Tian knew full well that making a bigger scene would only backfire on her, so she swallowed her anger and let it go. Surrounded by nurses, I was ushered out. Glancing back at Zhong Tian, I flashed her a provocative smile. Zhong Tian, this is just the beginning, the best is yet to come. Having taught Zhong Tian a little lesson, I returned home in high spirits. To my surprise, the ever-busy Shen Jingzhe was actually at home for once. He bought the oranges and candy I love. As soon as I got back, he asked about Zhong Tian. How is Tian doing? How very concerned he is. If he weren't afraid of it hindering his promotion, Shen Jingzhe would have rushed to the hospital to see Zhong Tian by now, wouldn't he? I answered with a blank expression. She's doing just fine, after all. She still has the energy to frame and slander me. What do you mean? Shen Jingzhe was taken aback. I went to see Zhong Tian like you asked, and I even brought fruit, but she was completely ungrateful. She threw the fruit and then slapped her own face. She pretended to faint to frame me. If the nurses at the hospital hadn't seen it with their own eyes from the doorway, I would have been falsely accused by her today. How is that possible? Shen Jingzhe's face was a picture of disbelief. If you don't believe me, go ask the nurses at the hospital. It wasn't just one person who witnessed her trying to frame me, there were 4. Shen Jingzhe fell into an uncharacteristic silence. Why would she slander you like that? You really don't know. I shot back. Looking at him, Shen Jingzhe shook his head. I scoffed. Zhong Tian said I'm not worthy of being your wife. She claims she is. His expression, which had been grave, shifted the moment he heard my words. Not this again, Li Xiangwan. When will you ever learn? How many times do I have to tell you? My relationship with Tian is purely platonic. There is absolutely no chance between us. Oh, really? But you two aren't actually related, are you? Regardless, my conscience is clear. Shen Jingzhe even had the nerve to warn me. Just behave yourself and don't cause me any trouble. Sensing that his tone had been too harsh with me, he softened his voice. Xiangwan, be a good girl and listen to me. I was wrong about the baby, and I apologize. We can have another child in the future. He thought letting me bear his child was some grand favor, little knowing that I was already a completely different person inside. I would never, ever have a child for Shen Jingzhe. He can keep dreaming. After I hit her, Zhong Tian suffered a genuine concussion and was hospitalized for several days, even during her stay. She couldn't resist stirring up trouble, making several calls to Shenjingze from the hospital phone. She even had someone deliver a letter to Shenjingze for her. After failing to get any response from Shenjingze, Zhong Tian panicked. She checked herself out of the hospital and went to find him in person. With tears welling in her eyes, Zhong Tian knocked on the door of the room I shared with Shenjingze, only to find him having lunch with me. The sight of Shenjingze placing a piece of spare rib into my bowl was more than Zhong Tian could bear to imagine. She sobbed, "Brother Jingze, are you just going to abandon me?" Seeing Zhong Tian's swollen face and her pitiful, delicate appearance, how could Shenjingze's heart not be moved? Tian, of course I care about you. I've just been so busy lately." Zhong Tian threw herself into Shenjingze's arms, sobbing. "I thought you didn't want me anymore, Jingze. I was so scared you'd abandoned me. You promised my parents you'd take care of me." Sobs. Zhong Tian's parents had done Shenjingze a great kindness. Mention of them brought a look of guilt to his face. I thought Zhong Tian would seize the chance to tell on me for hitting her and drive a wedge between Shenjingze and me. Turns out she's gotten smarter. She didn't breathe a single word about how I dealt with her at the hospital. All she did was reminisce with Shenjingze to rekindle their bond. In the end, she even tearfully apologized to me right in front of him. "Sis, I'm so sorry. My presence has put you in an awkward position. Don't worry, once I've recovered, I'll request a transfer to another location. I'm leaving, sister-in-law. You won't have to worry about me coming between you and brother Jingze anymore." With that, Zhong Tian actually knelt before me, kowtowing repeatedly and begging for my forgiveness. I have to admit, Zhong Tian's tactic of retreating in order to advance was truly effective. Shenjingze's heart ached for her to the extreme, and he immediately rushed over to help her up. "Your sister-in-law isn't that petty, Tian. We're not going anywhere. We'll stay right here, so it's easier for me to look after you." Leaning on Shenjingze's hand, Zhong Tian stood up. As she began to pour her heart out about the past, I couldn't bear to listen any longer and turned to leave. Deep down, I knew perfectly well that Zhong Tian had learned to play it smart. I also knew she wouldn't rush to tattle on me right away. She was retreating in order to advance, aiming to make Shenjingze feel sorry for her, and then she'd resort to her old tricks to deal with me. After wandering outside for a few hours, I returned to find Zhong Tian was gone. Shenjingze was sitting alone in the living room. When he saw me return, he spoke up. "Xiangwan, we need to talk." "All right." I nodded and walked over to sit opposite him. "What do you want to talk about?" "About Tian." Shenjingze took my hand. "Xiangwan, my feelings for Tian are truly just like those for a sister. You know her parents did me a great kindness. I can never repay them, and they treat me as sweetly as, with a daughter like Tian. The only way I can repay her is through Tian herself." "Fine, go ahead and repay her. I won't stop you. You don't need to run your plans with Zhong Tian by me. I don't care." "Xiangwan, don't say things in anger. I know what you're thinking. That Tian and I have something improper going on. I swear, I really only see Tian as a little sister. The person I want to spend the rest of my life with is you, and only you. In my past life, hearing such a heartfelt confession from him would have swept me off my feet. I'd have foolishly devoted myself to him without a single regret. It's a shame I'm not that foolishly Xiangwan from my past life, the one whose world revolved solely around love." I withdrew my hand. "I understand what you're saying. Was there anything else?" Seeing that his profound affection left me unmoved, Shenjingze was taken aback. He took my hand in his again and said with deep sincerity, "Xiangwan, I have to leave immediately for a mission and I'll be gone for a while. After I'm gone, you must get along peacefully with Tian. Tian has promised to listen to you from now on. You must fulfill your duties as her sister-in-law. I'm entrusting Tian to you. Wait for me to come back." It sounded almost like he was entrusting an orphan to my care. I raised an eyebrow and said, "Of course, I'll take very good care of your dear little sister Tian." Shenjingze led the team on a mission down south. Before leaving, he repeatedly urged Zhong Tian and me to get along peacefully. Zhong Tian and I both nodded in tacit agreement. Peaceful coexistence was out of the question. I knew Zhong Tian wouldn't let it go, and neither would I. By the time Shenjingze returns from this mission, Zhong Tian and I will have settled this once and for all. It's either her or me. The look we exchanged, Zhong Tian and I, was filled with that same steely resolve. On the first day after Shenjingze left, Zhong Tian and I got along just fine. She took the initiative to call me sister-in-law, and came over to help me tidy up. do the chores, and cook. On the second day after Shinjingza left, Zhong Tian bought me a piece of clothing and a pair of shoes, and even treated me to a movie. She affectionately linked arms with me, calling me sister-in-law over and over, making sure everyone in the compound witnessed our newfound closeness. We became inseparable, supporting each other and getting along as intimately as real sisters-in-law, as if our previous discord had never even happened. On the 10th day after Shinjingza left, Zhong Tian knocked on my door first thing in the morning, bringing me breakfast. "Sis, I'm off today. How about we go for a walk by the river?" "Sounds great, I'd love to." Zhong Tian had already packed a picnic lunch and warmly linked arms with me as we headed out the door. Whenever we ran into someone we knew, Zhong Tian would cheerfully greet them and say she was off to the riverside with me. After telling about a dozen people along the way, Zhong Tian and I grabbed some food, hopped on the old 28-inch bicycle, and headed straight for the riverbank. Just as we were about to arrive, I said I had a stomachache and needed to find a place to relieve myself, slipping away for a bit. By the time I made it back to the river, Zhong Tian had already been waiting there for me for over an hour. Her face was etched with impatience as she paced restlessly on the spot. Her eyes were filled with resentment, and she was muttering under her breath. I cleared my throat. Tian, sorry to keep you waiting." The moment she saw me, Zhong Tian's expression changed completely, as if the venomous look from a moment ago had just been a trick of the light. "Sis, the scenery here is gorgeous. I borrowed a camera, let me take a few photos of you." I happily agreed and stood by the riverbank, letting Zhong Tian take several pictures of me. Zhong Tian let out a gleeful laugh and lunged at me several times, but I, standing by the riverbank, deftly dodged her every time. I was laughing heartily, while Zhong Tian's laughter grew increasingly cold, after her attempts to pounce on me failed a few more times. Zhong Tian then took the initiative to lay out the picnic blanket and set out the food. She spread the picnic blanket by the river, choosing the side facing the water for herself and leaving the edge closest to the river for me to sit on. "I'm starving, come eat, sis-in-law." Zhong Tian eagerly offered me the food, but I didn't take it. Instead, I stared straight at Zhong Tian. "Alright, out with it, what's your angle?" "What angle could I possibly have?" Zhong Tian replied with a forced smile. I lowered my voice. "I know you were just looking for a chance to shove me into the river, then fall in yourself to make it look like I pushed you. When that didn't work, you're trying this instead. Let me guess what you're planning to do next." I looked at Zhong Tian's pale face. "You put something in the food to set me up." "Zhong Tian, do you really think I'm that stupid, now that I know you're a viper? And you still didn't suspect a thing? You found me out. I thought I could fool you for a few more days. I didn't realize you were so clever." The mask was off. Zhong Tian dropped the act. "Li Shengwan, since you already know, I won't hide it any longer. Today is the day you die." With those words, she lunged at me. I was sitting with my back to the stream when Zhong Tian lunged at me, sending us both tumbling into the water. This was Zhong Tian's trick from my past life. In my past life, Zhong Tian lured me to the riverbank, pushed me into the water, and framed it as a murder attempt where I was trying to kill her. I know how to swim, but Zhong Tian doesn't. Shortly after falling into the river, someone arranged by Zhong Tian arrived and rescued her. They then helped Zhong Tian testify that I had tried to kill her. Everyone believed Zhong Tian, including Shinjingza. Convinced by her story, he chose to uphold justice over family ties and had me sent to prison. Zhong Tian's scheme against me happened a full 30 years earlier in this life than in the last. If this were the Li Shengwan from my past life, I'd be a goner for sure, but I'm not that past life Li Shengwan. The moment Zhong Tian asked me to meet by the river, I knew exactly what she was up to. I knew Zhong Tian had arranged for witnesses to frame me, so I decided to play along and let her dig her own grave. As I fell into the river, I immediately grabbed Zhong Tian's head and forced it underwater, making sure she drank her fill in one go. Zhong Tian gulped and gurgled until her eyes rolled back. As she lost consciousness, I grabbed her hair and slammed her head against the jagged rocks on the riverbank, again and again. Zhong Tian's pretty face was a bloody mess, but it wasn't enough. In my past life, I had my uterus removed and could never bear children. How could I ever forget that kind of pain? Since I've been given a second chance, Zhong Tian should get a taste of what it's like to lose her womb. The rebar, prepared in advance by the riverbank, pierced through Zhong Tian's lower body. I watched the blood slowly stain the river red. Then, satisfied, I dragged Zhong Tian by the hair towards the shore. screaming for help at the top of my lungs. The witness Zhong Tian had arranged for arrived just in time, and she was rushed to the hospital. I lay on the ground by the river, a cold sneer curling at the corner of my mouth. Now it's Shenjingza's time to shine. Shenjingza didn't return until a week later. Upon hearing the terrible news of Zhong Tiantian's injury, he rushed to the hospital immediately. Zhong Tian was successfully resuscitated, but like my past self, she lost the chance to ever become a mother. Her fate was even worse than mine in my past life. She was disfigured, her face covered in pitted, uneven scars. Zhong Tian clung to Shenjingza, sobbing uncontrollably as she accused me of trying to harm her. Zhong Tian had been waiting for this day for a long time, but the outcome was nothing like she had imagined. She was left disfigured, while I emerged completely unscathed. Zhong Tian woke up claiming she had no regrets, but it was a lie. She couldn't fathom why I had fought back so fiercely. She couldn't understand how she had gone from being the aggressor to the victim, with things having come to this. Zhong Tian knew she had no other way out. She was determined to take me down and make me pay the price. She was determined to exploit Shenjingza's sense of indebtedness to make him take responsibility for her. Just as expected, upon hearing that I was the one who had caused Zhong Tiantian's condition, Shenjingza flew into a rage. Just like in her previous life, Zhong Tian had found herself a few reliable accomplices to act as witnesses. The accomplice witnesses all sang the same tune, corroborating Zhong Tiantian's accusations against me with convincing detail. They say that ever since Shenjingza left, I've been bullying Zhong Tian to win me over. Zhong Tian bought me clothes and shoes, did the housework without being asked, and even invited me on a spring outing, hoping to change my opinion of her. Little did she expect that I would cruelly turn on her. They saw with their own eyes that I held Zhong Tiantian's head under the water. With the evidence and witnesses all present, I am undeniably the one to blame. Just like in my past life, there's only one path left for me, going to prison. Shenjingza was furious at my malicious and shameless actions. His heart ached for Zhong Tiantian's current plight, and he promised her that he would give her a proper resolution. And I've been at home, bracing for Shenjingza's furious wrath. In the spare moments while waiting for Shenjingza to come back and give me trouble, I've already packed all my belongings. I sold off most of the furniture in the house, even my bicycle. I sewed all the money into the lining of my clothes. I've got the whole plan laid out, just waiting for the right moment to cut all ties with Shenjingza. The door was kicked open with a crash, and Shenjingza stormed in. He grabbed me by the collar and hauled me up. Li Xiangwan, why would you do this? I pried his fingers off with all my strength. Shenjingza, if I told you none of this was my doing, that it was all Zhong Tiantian's scheme, do you believe it? Bullshit. Shenjingza naturally didn't believe me, his anger boiling over into a curse. Li Xiangwan, Tian can't swim, but you can. Do you really think someone who can't swim would be foolish enough to try and scheme against someone who can? Human, just like in my past life. Shenjingza was utterly convinced that Zhong Tian would never take such a risk. He turned on me, his voice thick with fury. Besides, if Tian was the one who set you up, why would she risk disfigurement or permanent infertility? I let out a scornful laugh. That's easy to explain. Her plan backfired. Something went wrong. Even now, you refuse to see reason. Li Xiangwan, do you really think I'm obligated to protect you, that I have to defend you unconditionally? Do you have any idea what you're doing is a crime? You could go to jail for this. Of course I know, but none of this is my fault. Zhong Tian brought this on herself. You still refuse to repent. Li Xiangwan, you're more vicious and shameless than I ever imagined. More deranged too, since you're so hell-bent on committing evil. Don't blame me for what happens next. I won't let you get away with this. Fine, I'll be waiting. This was the same outcome as in my past life. I'd long since stopped expecting anything different, yet somehow, my heart still ached with a sharp, sudden pang. So, how do you plan to punish me? Shenjingza, seeing my indifferent attitude, Shenjingza kicked the sofa in frustration. You go to the hospital right now and give Tian a sincere apology. I won't apologize. Then you can just wait to go to jail. Let me make this clear to you, Li Xiangwan. I would never take a woman as deranged as you for my wife. I will divorce you the moment you're behind bars. Absolutely, I'd be delighted. I pulled out the divorce papers I had prepared long ago. Sign it, let's get divorced right now. Shenjingza looked at the divorce papers, then at me. You were already prepared. You knew I would ask for a divorce. Why, what? No questions, just sign it. Shenjingza, who had never been bested by me before, was absolutely furious. He snatched the pen I offered, scrawled his signature on the divorce papers, and flung them at me. You got what you wanted. I bent down to pick up the divorce papers, and by the time I straightened up, Shinjingza had already stormed off. He even had the nerve to threaten me on his way out. Just you wait, the police will be coming for you any minute now. I let out a cold laugh, grabbed the divorce agreement, and headed straight for the Civil Affairs Bureau. An hour later, I walked out of the Civil Affairs Bureau with 2 divorce certificates in my hand. I'm relieved that the divorce went so smoothly. Now, the next thing to wait for is the police questioning. I'm not at all afraid of the police questioning. It's not like Zhong Tian is the only one who can find witnesses to testify against me. I've lived a long life and have my own resources, and my preparations are even more thorough than Zhong Tiantian's. The police didn't come to me. I took the initiative to go to them with evidence to file a report. I have prepared my evidence thoroughly. Zhong Tian knew I could swim, so she prepared food laced with sleeping pills for me. Her original intention was for me to fall into the river and drown after being knocked out. She never expected I would see through her plan, so Zhong Tian changed her scheme on the spot, intending to stage an incident where I would push her, who couldn't swim, into the water. Knowing Zhong Tiantian's intentions, I had already lined up a few witnesses in advance. They were nurses from the hospital, who immediately sent the food Zhong Tian had laced with sleeping pills for testing. They witnessed with their own eyes Zhong Tian pushing me into the river and also confirmed that she had purchased a sufficient quantity of sleeping pills herself. As for why Zhong Tian suffered such severe consequences from her own scheme, it's because she couldn't swim, and her luck was absolutely terrible. She accidentally hit her face on a hard rock, and as if that wasn't enough, a piece of rebar floating in the river just happened to pierce her uterus. Rocks and steel rebar can't talk, and there are no traceable fingerprints to prove someone harmed her. Zhong Tian is stuck swallowing this bitter pill. I provided evidence to accuse Zhong Tian of the crime, and the evidence against her is solid, due to her weakened state after losing her uterus. The police are waiting for her to recover before issuing an arrest warrant, after my divorce from Shinjingza. With no ties left to hold me back, I immediately bought a train ticket and headed south without a second thought. Punishing Zhong Tian is my objective, but it is not the ultimate goal. While Zhong Tian is certainly despicable, Shinjingza is equally culpable. Dealing with Zhong Tian wasn't enough. Knowing how things unfold, I'm aware that Shinjingza is in for a world of hurt. Without my help from the previous life, he's going to suffer, big time. I'm just waiting for Shinjingza's comeuppance. After leaving, I threw myself completely into building my career, dedicating all my energy to it. Having a sense of what was coming next was a huge help to me. I successfully started from the bottom and worked my way up, achieving solid results in less than 5 years. As the winds of reform and opening up swept across the land, I was among the first to dive into the business world and reap the rewards. The company I founded expanded rapidly, and over a decade later, I became the country's first female richest person by net worth. I took my money and the people I had gathered to open branch offices all over the country, while also engaging in charitable work wherever I went. I never expected to see Shinjingza during a charity visit in Jiangqing. Over a decade later, Shinjingza had transformed from a dashing, upright military officer into a disabled man confined to a wheelchair. I was speaking on stage, while he watched me from below, seated in his wheelchair. When our eyes met, my expression was one of complete understanding. While his face was a mask of utter shock, I saw Shinjingza's lips moving. Though I couldn't hear a sound, I could clearly read what he was saying. It was unmistakably the 2 words, Shengwan. After donating a substantial sum of money, I was about to drive away when Shinjingza, in his wheelchair, blocked the path of my car. Shengwan, do you have any idea how long I've been looking for you? I asked him indifferently. What do you want with me? I never intended to send you to prison, and I never intended to divorce you. I was just angry. I tried to persuade Zhong Tian to drop the charges against you, but by the time I convinced Zhong Tian, you had already left. Is this supposed to be a belated apology? Even if it is, why should I accept it? Seeing me stare at him coldly without a word, Shinjingza's face fell, his lips quivered. Shengwan, I had no idea Zhong Tian could be so despicable. I was completely deceived by her. That's why I acted that way. Stop, I don't care. We're divorced, remember. Your life is none of my business anymore. I stared at Shinjingza and said, slowly and deliberately, would you mind getting out of my way? I'm in a hurry to see my husband and my son. today is our 6th wedding anniversary. You're married, you're actually married and have a child. Shinjing's face turned ashen as he wheeled his chair forward. My driver started the car. As it began to move, Shinjingza suddenly spoke up. Xiangwan, I had a dream. In it, you loved me deeply, you never left my side, and we had a son together. Oh, really? I replied, rolling down the window and smiling at Shinjingza. There must be more to that dream, right? Like how you turned a blind eye to me for Zhong Tiantian's sake, or how you had me thrown in jail because of Zhong Tiantian, how you and your ungrateful son always favored and bullied me, just like her. Shinjing's face turned as pale as snow. I said with a beaming smile, in your dream, were you on death's door after some heroic act? And was it Zhong Tiantian who begged a famous doctor on her knees to snatch you back from the jaws of death? Snatched it back. In the dream, your career took off like a rocket, and you spent a lifetime thanking Zhong Tiantian as your savior. Isn't that right? How did you know that? Shinjingza asked me urgently. How I know is none of your business, but I'll tell you one thing. Do you know why? In this life, you've been stuck in the same position ever since you earned that merit, so you never got out of that wheelchair. That's because I didn't run hundreds of miles to beg medical experts on my knees to save you, like I did in the dream. So, you're crippled, so it was you who saved me in the past life, not Zhong Tiantian. No wonder, I scoffed. Shinjingza, did you dream that I contracted a terminal illness and died a miserable death in prison? Shinjingza, what were you thinking? Feeling relieved, are you? After all, you can only marry your precious Zhong Tiantian with a clear conscience once I'm dead. No. That's not it. I didn't know you would die. I thought you were faking your illness. By the time I rushed back, you were already. I regret it so much. I'm filled with regret. Is this what you call a belated regret? But what good is that to me? Shinjingza murmured. Xiangwan, I know it was all Zhong Tiantian's fault. I didn't let her off the hook. I punished her. She just got out. She's in a terrible state. That put my mind at ease. I rolled up the car window and told the driver. Let's go. The car drove away, and Shinjingza in the wheelchair grew more and more distant from me. Seeing Jingza as he is now, I finally let out a sigh of relief. In this lifetime, I have no regrets. The car sped along. The brick phone beside me rang. It was a call from my current husband. I answered, and his gentle voice came through the phone. Xiangwan, our son and I are waiting for you. Okay, I'll be right there. No one can live in the past forever. Shinjingza is now part of my history. What I have now is a loving husband and our adorable son. In this life, I will no longer rely on or trust men. I am going to be the queen of my own destiny. That's all for today's story. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like and subscribe. If you have any suggestions, feel free to leave a comment below. See you in the next video.